Live from Las Vegas, the 5 leading Democratic candidates, a 2-night CNN town hall event. Sanders, Buttigieg, Klobuchar, Biden, Warren. 5 live presidential town halls start Tuesday night at 8 Eastern, only on CNN.
Hello and welcome to this live stream. That's right. You'll be watching. This will be a two-parter live stream. You're going to be watching the first 3 candidates. Bernie, Buttigieg, and Klobuchar. Then on Thursday, Biden and Elizabeth and Warren. So it'll be a two-part. So it's going to be a two-parter. So I hope you're ready. So I hope you'll be ready for the. So I hope you'll be ready for when it starts. CNN Democratic Presidential Town Halls, Part 1. And speaking of which, we better get started on that. I hope you enjoy.
Race for the White House, Sundays at 9 on CNN.
Welcome back to a special edition of Out Front, live from Las Vegas. You are looking at the stage, and you see Anderson behind me. Bernie Sanders is just moments away from kicking off our night of town halls with Nevada voters. He'll be joining Anderson in a few moments, and at 9, I'll be joined by the former South Bend Mayor, Pete Buttigieg. And at 10 p.m., we'll hear from Senator Amy Klobuchar. David Chalian is back with me. All right, so these are 3 candidates with a lot at stake tonight. You've got now the front runner in the polls, Bernie Sanders, Pete Buttigieg, who's had 2 extremely strong performances, and Amy Klobuchar, who's had a surge.
Yeah, I mean, what I am really eager to see, Aaron, is how does Bernie Sanders wear the mantle of front runner tonight? That's not a position he's been in. And so I'm wondering to see how he handles that on the stage tonight. You'd mentioned earlier, daggers coming his way from some of his opponents. Does he sort of brush those off? And does he give us clues about how he plans to take on Michael Bloomberg on the debate stage tomorrow night, since he's brand new to the fray?
Right, and that's going to be obviously the big question. He's coming in. Now, there's a lot at stake, of course, for Mayor Buttigieg as well, because he did have 2 strong finishes, but his polling numbers don't look anything like that here in Nevada or in South Carolina.
Yeah, well, this is the big test now. We always knew this test was coming for Pete Buttigieg. He obviously overperformed in Iowa and New Hampshire. Congrats to him, but he's always had struggles with non-white voters, and Nevada, followed by South Carolina, are the first 2 big tests. And by the way, Amy Klobuchar has a similar test. She also has been struggling with non-white voters. These are really important moments to see if they can take their Iowa, New Hampshire success or energy and actually convert it to the long haul.
And it is do or die for some of these candidates, these Nevada, South Carolina races.
They will reshape the entire race heading into that Super Tuesday contest where 40% of the delegates are going to be awarded.
All right. Well, David Chalian, thank you very much. And thanks very much to all of you for joining us. I think Anderson is ready, and CNN's Democratic Presidential Town Hall with Bernie Sanders, live from Las Vegas, starts now.
Welcome. This is a CNN Town Hall event live from the theater at Sahara, Las Vegas. I'm Anderson Cooper. Voters in Iowa and New Hampshire have already shaken up the race for the Democratic nomination. Here in Nevada, Democrats are getting ready to have their say in Saturday's caucuses. Our audience, many of whom are still undecided, will have a chance to pose questions to the candidates vying for their vote. We're going to hear from 3 of the top contenders tonight, including Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar. But first, please welcome Senator Bernie Sanders. See you. Welcome. So we're going to get to the audience in a second. Tomorrow night, for the first time, you're going to be on a debate stage with the former mayor of New York, Michael Bloomberg. Perhaps you've heard this.
I have heard this.
Yes. 2 polls out today show that he's your closest competition. Right now, do you see him as the biggest threat to you to getting the nomination?
Anderson, I'm not much into political speculation. I don't know what's going to happen here in Nevada. I don't know what's going to happen on Super Tuesday. I don't know, who's going to win, who's going to lose. But this is what I do know. And this I feel very strongly about. Mr. Bloomberg has every right in the world to run for president of the United States. He's an American citizen. But I don't think he has the right to buy this election. We pride ourselves on being the longest standing democracy in the world. And we're proud of that. To me, what that means, one person, one vote. You want to run for president? You run for president. You got good ideas, maybe you win, maybe you don't win. But I do think it's a bit obscene that we have somebody who, by the way, chose not to contest in Iowa, in Nevada, in South Carolina, in New Hampshire, where all of the candidates, we did town meetings, we're talking to thousands and thousands of people working hard. He said, I don't have to do that. I'm worth $60 billion. I have more wealth than the bottom 125 million Americans. I'll buy the presidency. That offends me very much. And tomorrow night, and what also offends me is, I think we're going to take a look at his record. And there are a number of things about his record that I think the American people may not know. As the mayor of the New York City, he was very aggressive in pushing so-called stop and frisk. And what that meant, and it was very clear, no hiding this, that if you were black, if you are a Latino man and you walk down the street, the police had the right to grab you for no reason, throw you up against the wall, search you. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of African Americans and Latinos in New York City underwent that. And then finally, after he left and Bill de Blasio became mayor, they did away with stop and frisk, and you know what? Crime rate continued to go down. So his policies humiliated and offended hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. And I think that is something that is worthy of discussion.
Let's get to our audience. Oh, I'm sorry, over here. This is Anna Leiker. She's a former teacher from Henderson. She's currently undecided. Anna?
Good evening, Senator Sanders. We're going to continue with the Bloomberg theme. Recently, you accused candidate Mayor Bloomberg of attempting to buy the 2020 election and have rejected money from corporate donors. Bloomberg has stated he will use his wealth to support any candidate who gets the nomination in order to beat Donald Trump. If nominated, would you accept help from billionaires like Bloomberg? And if not, why throw away something that can make a huge difference in winning 2020?
Well, thank you very much for the question. And let me differentiate how we raise money from how Mr. Bloomberg does, and I'll answer your question. I am enormously proud, and our supporters are proud, that we have received more campaign contributions, 7 million, from more Americans, 1.5 million Americans, than any candidate in the history of the United States of America. Okay? Now, I don't go to rich people's homes to raise money. We don't have a super PAC. But our contribution is, average contribution is all of $18.50. We're going to win this election because we are putting together the strongest grassroots movement in the modern history of this country, where millions of people are going to be out there knocking on doors, doing everything that they can to defeat Donald Trump, who, in my view, is the most dangerous president in the United States. So let me just say this. I think I can speak for all of the other Democratic candidates, many of whom are longtime friends of mine. And that is, on day one, when I announced my candidacy, I said that obviously we were going to do everything we can to win. But if I did not win the nomination, I would support vigorously the candidate who won, because Donald Trump must be defeated.
So let me just follow up on that, because Anna was specifically asking, would you accept, if Michael Bloomberg doesn't get it, you get the nomination, would you accept if he says, look, I got $500 million left over that I'm going to give to you, would you accept that?
Well, what I did say is that if Mr. Bloomberg wins, and I certainly hope he does not, I will support the Democratic nominee. As of now, we don't have a super PAC. We're not asking for a super PAC. That is my position right now.
So you're not sure if you would take the money or not? Okay, I'll leave it there.
Let me just answer in this. I don't think we're going to need that money because, interestingly enough, I think when you have an agenda as we have that speaks to the needs of working families, you're going to have millions and millions and millions of people chipping in $10 a piece, $50 a piece, and that's how you're going to raise the money you need to defeat Trump. Now, Trump may end up, because he has billionaire friends all over the place who are pouring huge amounts of money into his campaign, he may end up having more money. But, there is a point in which money ceases to be significant. We will have enough money to run a strong campaign. We will have enough money to defeat Donald Trump.
This is Jonas Schumpert. He's an entertainment manager, is currently undecided. Jonas?
Hi, Senator Sanders. Thank you so much for joining us here in Las Vegas. As a former member of Actors Equity Association, many have worked to become a part of a union. Universal health care for all is a major campaign issue for you. This is a good idea for those that do not have health care. However, for the individuals that have honed a craft, not only in AEA, but other unions, would lose their protective insurance. What would you say to those that have worked so hard to achieve a goal and then to have it stripped away?
Well, it's not a question of being stripped away. The question is that we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child as a human right. We have a cruel and dysfunctional system. We are now spending twice as much as the people of any other country, $11,000 every man, woman, and child. And as a union man, you understand that when unions negotiate, what is the major issue that's up for negotiation? Whether or not they're going to take back some of the health care benefits. You want a 3% raise? Okay, we're going to cut your health care. What we have got to do is what every other major country on earth does, guarantee health care to all people. Despite now spending more than any other country, we got 87 million who are uninsured and underinsured. That means very large premiums that people are paying, co-payments that people are paying, outrageous deductibles that people have, out-of-pocket expenses. And by the way, we are paying the highest prices in the world by far for prescription drugs. In some cases, we are paying 10 times more than the Canadians or people in Europe for the same exact prescription drugs because of the greed and the corruption of the pharmaceutical industry. What Medicare for All means is that your union is not going to have to sit down and negotiate health care benefits every time you come to the table. What it will mean is you will have quality care by expanding Medicare. And let me tell you what I mean by expanding Medicare. Right now, Medicare is the most popular health insurance program in America, far more popular than private insurance. But it is far from perfect. What we are going to do with Medicare for All is expand health care benefits to include dental care, to include hearing aids, to include eyeglasses, and you know what else? We're going to cover home health care so that people will not be forced out of their homes unnecessarily into a nursing home. There was a study, let me just say this, there was a study came out the other day, I don't know if you saw it, Anderson. It was in Lancet, which is the medical publication in England, which is one of the more prestigious medical publications in the world. The study was done by some Yale scholars, and what it showed is that if we move to a Medicare for All system, we will save $450 billion a year because we're going to end the profiteering of the insurance companies and the drug companies, and we're going to save hundreds of billions of dollars on administrative costs because right now we have to administer thousands of separate plans. So I am a strong advocate for Medicare for All, and I think after 100 years of talk, about guaranteeing health care for all, maybe the time is now to take on the drug companies, take on the insurance companies, and finally do what the American people want.
I want to follow up. One of your supporters, one of your surrogates, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, recently expressed concerns about getting Medicare for all through Congress, said it might be, as a compromise, it might be necessary to pass a public option or focus on passing a public option instead. Are you open to compromise?
Well, I love Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She has done more in her first year in Congress to transform politics, to get young people involved than any freshman member of Congress that I can remember. But my view is that Medicare for all, the bill that we wrote, is in a sense already a compromise. It is a 4-year transition period. All of you know that right now, to be eligible for Medicare, you got to be 65. What we do is in the first year, we go from 65 down to 55, next year 45, next year 35, and then we cover everybody. And let me be very clear, if I could for a second, Anderson, just explain what this means. No more premiums, no more copayments, no more deductibles, no more out-of-pocket expenses. And we're going to fund it publicly, and for the average American, it will be a significant, significant reduction in his or her health care costs.
This is Vincent Nava, a program coordinator at Nevada State College. He's a supporter of yours.
Hey, Vincent.
Senator Sanders, as a proud son of immigrants and as a higher education professional working with DACA and undocumented scholars, immigration is the most important issue for me in this presidential election. How highly do you prioritize immigration and a pathway for citizenship for the millions that are waiting here in the United States?
Vincent, thank you very much for that important question. It is very much at the top of our list. And let me tell you what we're going to do. For a start, Vincent, I don't know if you know this, I am the son of an immigrant. All right, my dad came to this country at the age of 17 without a nickel in his pocket, couldn't speak a word of English, had very limited education. He came to this country to escape terrible poverty and anti-Semitism. So I have a sense, a little bit of a sense of the immigrant experience. So here's my promise to you. Day one, we will rescind all of Trump's hateful and racist immigration executive orders. We are going to stop, I don't want to spend too much time on Trump, not worth it. But one of the ugly things that he does, as you know, is he tries to divide our people up based on the color of our skin or where we were born or our religion or our sexual orientation or whatever. That's what he does. We're trying to bring people together, not divide them up. On day one, we will restore the legal status of the 1.8 million young people and their parents who are eligible for the DACA program. And that can be done by executive order. Under our administration, my promise to you is that federal agents will never be grabbing little babies from the arms of their mothers, nor throwing children into cages. And I believe that we can accomplish what should have been done years ago. And that is that the American people want comprehensive immigration reform. And I believe that this is an issue that we can bring Republicans and Democrats together to finally pass immigration reform and a path towards citizenship for all of the 11 million undocumented.
This is Nicole Holland. She works in sales for a film distribution company. She's still undecided. Nicole?
Good evening, Senator Sanders. Nevada is in an affordable rental and housing crisis. I just had to move because the owner of my unit sold it. The unit I'm in is exactly the same, but it's $800 more per month for rent. How do you plan on implementing national rent control and ensuring fair housing for all?
Well, Nicole, thank you for raising what is an enormously important issue, not just for Nevada, not just for California, but for Burlington, Vermont, my hometown, and communities all over this country. We have introduced a sweeping housing proposal which will deal with in a very significant way with the housing crisis. What is the crisis? Right now, unbelievably, in the richest in the history of the housing, which should open up the market and lower rents. Second of all, I grew up in a family that did not have a lot of money. I spent my entire childhood in a rent-controlled apartment in Brooklyn, New York. And that meant that my family, at least, we didn't have a lot of money, but we didn't have to worry about rents, going up by 10, 15%, which many Americans do. We believe that rent control is an appropriate tool nationally to tell landlords that they cannot simply jack up their rents to any rate that they want.
Senator, this is Maria Carrillo. She's an independent caretaker from Las Vegas. She supports you and Senator Warren. Maria?
Hello, Senator Sanders. So I'm a big supporter, but for those who still need to hear it, will you condemn the Bernie bro behavior?
I will condemn absolutely anybody, including my campaign or any other campaign, that makes vicious personal attacks against people. What our people are involved in, we are a campaign which believes in compassion, which believes in justice. So I don't tolerate ugly attacks against anybody. But let me just say this. Talk to the people in my campaign, often the African-American women in this campaign. Talk to my wife about the kind of ugly attacks that have come into us. So right now, which is a very serious national problem, we have an internet which is essentially the Wild West. Somebody could say, hey, I'm Anderson Cooper, and Zippo say some ugly things. And right now that cannot be stopped. All right? So yes, I want to have this campaign focus on the important issues facing the American people. I've just said a moment ago, as I've said many times, I'm going to support, if I don't win this thing, I'm going to support somebody else who wins it. All right, and I don't want to see terrible personal attacks. We can disagree on the issues, not personal attacks, but that is not just my campaign. We got millions of supporters out there. We've got millions and millions of supporters, and I dare say 99.9% are people who would never, ever do that. And I urge other candidates also to be mindful of these ugly personal attacks that have come into my campaign.
I just want to follow up on that because some of some of the other candidates have raised this issue, and I want you to be able to respond to what they said. It's been raised by Bloomberg. Also, former Vice President Biden said that you have some accountability. The Culinary Union, Nevada's largest labor union, said some of its members face online harassment after they announced concerns about Medicare.
Well, as I said, I am two things. Number one, I'm totally against online bullying and harassment. And I condemn anybody who claims to speak to me. I have a hard time understanding, given my views, which everybody knows, how anybody who thinks they are supporting me would do some ugly and terrible thing. But also, let me just say this, and I don't want to be overly paranoid here, is that, we live in a crazy time. And there are a lot of folks out there who do bots and all this other thing. I saw some of those things. And there are people out there who want to divide the progressive movement. I am the strongest, perhaps lifetime supporter of unions in the United States Congress. The idea that anybody who works with me would make a vicious attack against the union leader just because we disagree on an issue is incomprehensible to me. And you know what? I'm just not sure that that's true. And anybody out there who claims to be a Bernie Sanders supporter, we work with the unions. This is a union-led campaign. We believe in unions. We will never attack union leadership, and we will not attack people on a personal basis. We can have a debate about the issues, but I do not believe in online bullying. End of discussion.
All right, we're going to have more with Senator Bernie Sanders in a moment. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
My name is Charmaine, and I just discovered Premier Protein. I have a very active family. I couldn't keep up anymore. I like the chocolate one. It actually tastes really good.
With 30 grams of protein, 160 calories, and just 1 gram of sugar. Premier Protein. Too good to be good.
If you're 55 and up, T-Mobile has a plan designed just for you. And for a limited time only, we're making it an even better deal. Now you can get 2 lines for only $55. That includes unlimited talk, text, and data with no annual service contracts. It also includes talk, text, and data when traveling in Mexico and Canada. So if you're 55 and up, you can now get 2 lines for only $55. Because at T-Mobile, we have a plan designed just for you.
My body is truly powerful.
I have the power to lower my blood sugar and A1C.
Because I can still make my own insulin. And Trulicity activates my body to release it, like it's supposed to.
Trulicity is for people with type 2 diabetes. It's not insulin. I take it once a week. It starts acting in my body from the first dose.
Trulicity isn't for people with type 1 diabetes or diabetic ketoacidosis. Don't take Trulicity if you're allergic to it, you or your family have medullary thyroid cancer, or have multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2. Stop Trulicity and call your doctor right away if you have an allergic reaction, a lump or swelling in your neck, or severe stomach pain. Serious side effects may include pancreatitis. Taking Trulicity with a sulfonylurea or insulin increases low blood sugar risk. Side effects include nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, belly pain, and decreased appetite, which lead to dehydration and may worsen kidney problems.
I have it within me to lower my A1C.
Ask your doctor about Trulicity.
Everything your trip needs for everyone you love. Expedia.
There may be dark days ahead, but with God's help, we shall prevail.
A king who didn't want the throne must lead England through its darkest hour.
The Windsors, Inside the Royal Dynasty, Sunday at 10 on CNN.
Oh no, here comes the neighbor. Probably to brag about how amazing his Xfinity customer service is. I'm Mike. I'm so busy.
Good thing Xfinity has 2-hour appointment windows.
They have night and weekend appointments too.
He's here.
Bill? Carolyn?
No?
No, just a couple of rocks.
Download the My Account app to manage your appointments, making today's Xfinity customer service simple, easy, awesome.
I'll pass.
There was a time when it seemed like gangs ruled the streets of Fresno. Then Jerry Dyer became police chief, and crime dropped dramatically. Jerry Dyer took on the gangs and got our neighborhoods back.
We stand for what we believe in.
Now Jerry Dyer wants to be mayor. He plans to address the needs of the homeless and keep our streets and parks safer. Jerry Dyer will enforce local codes, protect property, and make our communities safer and cleaner. And yes, Jerry Dyer will take the fight against violent crime to an all-new level. Vote Jerry Dyer for mayor.
Race for the White House, Sundays at 9 on CNN.
And welcome back. We're live with Senator Bernie Sanders from Sahara, Las Vegas. We're going to get back to audience questions in a moment. I just want to bring up, again, not your favorite topic, but President Trump. He seems to tweet about you a lot. I think this year he's tweeted about you some 20 times. He tweeted about you today. Why do you think he seems to want to run against you so badly?
Oh, really? That's not how I would interpret it. I think Trump understands that we have something that other candidates don't, and that we have an unprecedented grassroots movement. The reason we won the popular vote in Iowa, why we won New Hampshire, why I think we have a good chance to win here in Nevada, is because we have had tens and tens of thousands of people in the cold, knocking on doors, making the phone calls, and that is the kind of grassroots movement that we need to defeat Trump. And what Trump understands is that the way he is going to lose is when we have the largest voter turnout in the history of this country. And what that means is, and I think he knows that we are the candidate. You know, Trump is big into rallies and all that. He saw that last night in Tacoma, Washington, we had 17,000 people out. Okay? We had 26,000 out in Queens, New York. We are, I believe, the campaign of energy and excitement. What does that mean? It means that we are reaching out to working class people who have given up on the political process. They're looking at the establishment parties, establishment leadership, and they're saying, who cares about me? I can't afford health care, can't afford to send my kid to college, can't afford child care. Anybody worried about me? Yeah, this campaign is speaking to those people. And I'll tell you too who else we're talking to. We are talking to the young people of this country. All right? And I'm very proud that, as I think you know, Anderson, in poll after poll, we're doing really well with young people. In Iowa, the voter turnout increase among young people was 33% higher than in the last election. I think you're going to see that in Nevada as well. So we're trying to bring large numbers of people into the political process, bring unity to the Democratic Party and all of the candidates. That's how we beat Trump. That's why he's afraid.
I want to bring in Clarence Dortch, a middle school teacher, former juvenile correction officer from Henderson. He's currently undecided. Clarence?
Good evening, Senator Sanders. Clark County School District disproportionately disciplines black boys and girls at a rate higher than any other group. In some cases, 5 times higher. This often pushes these students out of the classroom and into the school-to-prison pipeline. Many school districts all over this country are dealing with the same problem. As president, what is your day one plan for dealing with the racist bias in our American school system?
Thanks very much for that important question. And let me just start off by saying we're very proud to have the support in this campaign of the Clark County Educational Association. The school-to-prison pipeline is a horror show in many communities around this country. And what we have got to do, and what my campaign is talking about, and what we'll do as president, is triple funding for low-income Title I schools. Now, you know what that means? That means instead of having police officers in the school, we're going to have mentors in the school. It means we're going to have counselors in the school. It means because we got more people in jail today than any other country on earth, disproportionately, as you know, African American, Latino, and Native Americans. What we're going to do is invest in job training, invest in high-quality schools, not invest in more jails and incarceration. All right? And we're going to invest in public education. We're going to make sure that we have the teachers. This is the wealthiest country on earth. There are teachers who are entering the profession today who make less than $30,000 a year. What does that say about our respect for the children? All right? And that is why, among many other reforms that we have in education, we're going to move toward the day sooner than later where no teacher in America earns less than $60,000 a year. All right? I want the young people who are in college right now to say with pride to their classmates, you know what, I'm so excited. I am going to do one of the most important jobs that can be done in America. Man, I'm going to become a teacher. I'm going to influence thousands of young people. So instead of, to answer that important question, instead of giving tax breaks to billionaires, we invest in education, we invest in our children, and we create the best public school and child care system in the entire world. That's our goal.
This is Richard Kastenbaum. He's a veterinary nurse from Henderson. He's currently undecided. Richard?
Thank you for being here, Senator. We all agree that climate change is here, and the solution is by stopping the use of fossil fuels and increasing the use of renewable energy. How do we get countries like China, India, and Russia to do the same?
Excellent question, Richard. It's something I talk about in almost every speech that I give. You said that we all know that climate change is real. Maybe make that statement a little louder so the President of the United States can hear it. You know, we got a president who literally believes that climate change is a hoax. But the American people are seeing the damage of climate change with their own eyes. And more people understand the severity of the crisis. And if I may say so, we will be an administration that listens to scientists, not right-wing extremists. So, what I am proud to tell you is that in this campaign, we have introduced the most comprehensive and sweeping climate change proposal ever introduced by a candidate for federal office. And basically what it says is what Richard indicated, that we have got to tell the fossil fuel industry that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet. This is a moral issue, all right? If we love our children, and I got 4, and our grandchildren, and I got 7, and future generations, we are gonna have to save this planet, or else it will become increasingly unhealthy and uninhabitable for future generations. My job as president, then, is not just to take on the fossil fuel industry in this country, because as you indicated, this is a global issue. We have got to talk to and communicate to the people of China and Russia and India and Brazil and Latin America and Africa and all over this world that we are in this fight together, all right? And maybe, maybe I'm dreaming here a little bit and asking, a little too much. But as president, this is my message to the world, that instead of spending $1.8 trillion a year on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other, let's pool our resources and fight our common enemy, which is climate change. That's my message.
I want to follow up. You said in your plan, by 2030, you say you'll transition to renewable energy for all electricity and transportation. Yep. How do you do that? You're not supporting nuclear power plants. You don't support fracking. That's the way they've been using those to reduce our reliance, to reduce the emissions so far over the last decade.
Well,
so how do you do it without that?
I don't support the creation of more nuclear power plants. That's true. But we're not calling for the shutdown tomorrow. They're going to be phased out. But here is the bottom line. The bottom line is that if we take the climate crisis seriously, and if we listen to the scientists, what that means is that there will be a massive investment in energy efficiency so that our homes and our buildings do not waste an enormous amount of energy, as is currently the case. It means that we transform our energy system, we move aggressively in agriculture, and we invest heavily in sustainable energies like wind, solar, geothermal, and other sustainable energies. An example, right here. I was in Nevada in the summer. It was 113 degrees. I don't know how you guys deal with that. All right, sun is boiling down. And this state, I know you're making some progress, this state should be leading the country in solar energy. And we will help you do it. Same story in Florida. Same story in Puerto Rico. All right? We have the potential to produce an enormous amount of electrical energy. We got to modernize our grid, but the future rests with sustainable energy, which, by the way, Anderson, is a lot cheaper than building new nuclear power plants.
What critics say is that there's not the capabilities, the technological capabilities right now to store that energy. That's
well, we're going to invest heavily. I'm not sure that that's accurate, and we're going to invest heavily in research and development to make that happen. But look, on this issue, I know people may disagree with me, but I got to lay it on the line. I don't think you have a choice on this issue, all right? People have criticized me. They say, Bernie, you're proposing a very large expenditure in terms of moving to sustainable energy, transforming the energy system. And I say to them, you tell me how much is too much if we're talking about saving this planet for future generations. So, we don't have an alternative. And I want to remind everybody, and I often make this analogy. At the beginning of World War II, when Pearl Harbor took place in 1941, this country was in no way prepared to fight a war in Asia and to fight a war in Europe. That's the truth. And yet, within 2 years, 2.5 years, because of the industrialization of this country and the focus on producing planes and tanks and weapons, in 2.5 years, the war was basically won and Nazism was on the defense. That's what we got to do now. We have got to start investing, using our scientists, using our engineers, using our young people. We can do it. And when we do it, by the way, under the principles of the Green New Deal, which I support, we can create up to 20 million good-paying union jobs transforming our energy system.
I want to bring in Chapman Noam. He's a law student at UNLV.
Sorry, your first name?
Chapman. He's currently undecided. Chapman.
Thank you for joining us, Senator. My father came to the U.S. from Israel in the 80s after finishing his military service. Most of my biological family still lives over there, and I find myself very regularly concerned for their safety. So my question to you is, how do U.S.-Israel relations look under your administration?
Okay. I should tell you that I spent some 6 months of my life as a young man in Israel. I've got a cousin who lives in Israel. And I will do everything I can to protect the independence and the security of the people of Israel. Israelis have the right to live in a safe and secure nation. But I must tell you this also, that to be for the Israeli people and to be for peace in the Middle East does not mean that we have to support right-wing, racist governments that currently exist in Israel. And let me tell you this also, and I feel strongly about it as somebody who's Jewish, and knowing how much our people have suffered over the years. Take a look at what's going on in Gaza right now. You've got youth unemployment, 70%. You got people can't even leave the area. What American foreign policy has got to be about is in the Middle East, bringing the Israelis, bringing the Palestinians together under the banner of justice. All right, and that means, and we can do it. We have the wealth to do it. It cannot just simply be a one that we're just pro-Israel and we ignore the needs of the Palestinian people. We've got to pay attention to both. And by the way, it's not a dissimilar situation with regard to Iran and Saudi Arabia. For years, we have loved Saudi Arabia, our wonderful ally. Only problem is the people who run that country are murderous thugs. All right? And I believe that instead of being really cozy with Mohammed bin Salman there, the billionaire dictator of Saudi Arabia, I believe, President Obama made good progress in this way, and we got to build on that, that we can bring the Saudis and the Iranians together. Tell them that we're sick and tired as a nation spending trillions of dollars on endless wars. They're going to have to get their act together. And we have the resources to help bring that about.
This is Gina Lucariello. She's a high school science teacher and a supporter of yours. Gina?
Hello, thank you. I've been a longtime supporter of Senator Sanders, and I share the vision that Senator Sanders has for this great nation of ours. My question is this. If you win the nomination, Senator Sanders, how will you convince our fellow citizens on the right with more conservative views that they should support you for president and your vision for the future?
Thank you very much for that important question. Let me start off by saying, if my memory is correct, in my own state of Vermont, in the last election, which we won pretty comfortably, we won about 25% of Republican voters. And here's the issue. I know the media tells us that we are a very, very divided country, and there's obviously truth to that. But I don't think we are as divided as the media often tells us, because I get around the country and I talk to a whole lot of people. And if you ask people, you're a conservative Republican, what do you think? Should we raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour? Yeah, I think we should. Should we make sure that all of our kids, regardless of their income, get a good education and can go to college? Should we make public colleges and universities tuition-free? You'll find, not all, a whole lot of Republicans believe that. Republicans get sick too, and Republicans pay premiums. They are sick and tired of the outrageous cost of health care in America. They are as anxious to get into Medicare when they're 65 as anybody else. I'm not going to tell you every Republican supports Medicare for all. That's not true. But a lot of them do. And more Republicans understand what we just talked about a moment ago, that climate change is real and that we got to transform our energy system. On criminal justice, I have worked, and Congress has worked, brought people together. You got some really right-wing people who are asking the right question. They're saying, how come we are spending $80 billion a year locking up over 2 million Americans. Now, I think it's an issue of humanity, it's an issue of dignity, and they do too, but they also look at the money. We're spending $80 billion a year locking up fellow Americans. And that tells me that we need criminal justice reform, and that we invest in our children, in jobs and education, not more jails and incarceration. And that is not just my view. You find some conservative Republicans who understand that as well. And there are conservative Republicans out there who do not think it is appropriate to demonize undocumented people. They want immigration reform. So to answer your question, I'm not going to tell you that every Republican in America is going to be jumping up and down and supporting me. Probably not. But I think there is more commonality of views than is sometimes believed. The issue here really is, will Congress finally pay attention to the needs of working people in this country who have been ignored and neglected for such a long time? Today, the average American worker in real dollars is not making a nickel more than he or she did 45 years ago, while the billionaires are getting incredibly richer. So the question is, can we create a scenario in which the Congress listens to ordinary Americans and not just wealthy campaign contributors? And that is what my administration intends to bring about.
In September, just last September, you said that you would release your medical records by before the primaries. You haven't done that. You have released 3 letters from doctors, 2 of them cardiologists, 1 is your physician. Is releasing full medical records, is that no longer something?
No, we have released, I think, Anderson, quite as much as any other candidate has. We received, released 2 rather detailed letters from cardiologists, and we received, released a letter that came from the head of the U.S. Congress medical group, the physicians there. So I think we have released a detailed report, and I'm comfortable with what we have done. And by the way, if you think I'm not in good health, come on out with me on the campaign trail, and I'll let you introduce me to the 3 or 4 rallies a day that we do. How's that?
But just to be clear, you don't plan to release any more records?
I don't. I don't think we will, no.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll have more with Senator Bernie Sanders right after this.
As I was walking a ribbon of highway, I saw above me an endless skyway. I saw below me,
beyond all maps, where no one's been.
This land was made for you and me.
There is a place we could be free.
Rated PG.
Introducing even more value from Fidelity. Fidelity now has 0 commissions for online U.S. equity trades and ETFs. And Fidelity also offers 0 account fees for brokerage accounts, plus 0 minimums to open an account. And only Fidelity offers 4-0 expense ratio index funds directly to investors. With all those zeros, there are 0 reasons to invest anywhere else. Fidelity.
Buckle up for some insurance-themed fun at Progressive.
Ride the totally realistic
Traffic Jam.
and the world's first never bump bumper cars. It's a real savings hootenanny with options that fit your budget.
That's fun for the whole family.
Only at Progressive.
Maybe an insurance park was a bad idea. Yeah.
Yep. Break out the butter. Lobster Fest has something for every lobster fan, like wild-caught lobster, butter poached, creamy, and roasted. Or try lobster sautéed with crab, shrimp, and more. So hurry in and let's Lobster Fest. Or get it to go at redlobster.com.
Through the AT&T network, edge-to-edge intelligence gives you the power to see every corner of your growing business. From managing inventory to detecting and preventing threats, to scaling up your production, giving you a nice big edge over your competition. That's the power of edge-to-edge intelligence.
Feel the clarity of new, non-drowsy Claritin Cool Mint Chewables. The only allergy product with relief of your worst symptoms, including itchy throat, plus an immediate blast of cooling sensation. Feel the clarity and live Claritin Clear.
Saturday, the 2020 presidential race heads to Nevada. How will the first Western caucuses shake up the race? CNN takes you inside the results like no one else. The Nevada caucuses. Special live coverage starts Saturday at 2 Eastern on CNN.
Your sweetest dreams are coming true at Chukchansi Gold with our $900,000 Candy Cash giveaway. Earn your chance to find the golden ticket and play the Candy Cash game where you could win $500,000.
I'm a small business owner, the first in my family to graduate from college. Devin Nunes is a career politician who has taken millions from special interests. They get big tax breaks, we get cuts to our health care. I'm rejecting all corporate PAC money, so there's never a question about who I work for. The billionaires and political insiders want to keep the deck stacked in their favor. They're with Devin Nunes. I'm Phil Arbaio, and I approve this message to ask you to stand with me.
Don't miss Chukchansi Gold's $900,000 Candy Cash giveaway grand finale on Saturday, February 29th, where you could walk away with a guaranteed $50,000 at the 10 p.m. drawing, only at Chukchansi Gold Resort and Casino.
The Windsors, Inside the Royal Dynasty, Sundays at 10 on CNN.
Welcome back to CNN Presidential Town Hall with Senator Bernie Sanders. We're live at Sahara, Las Vegas. Got time for about 3 more questions. Christine Gonzalez is a grant specialist at Nevada State College, a supporter of yours, Senator. Christine?
Senator Sanders, thank you for being here tonight. My question is, what steps would you take to ensure that corporations and CEOs are held accountable for their actions, especially concerning the role they play in our nation's income inequality and climate change?
Now, how much do we have? Several hours to answer that question? Christine, thank you for a question that is not asked often enough. Let me give you just 2 examples, okay? Right now, as a result of the greed and corruption, price fixing and collusion of the pharmaceutical industry, people die in America. People cannot afford the medicine that they desperately need. The opioid manufacturers knew that the product they were selling was addictive and killing people. And you know what they did when they learned about that? They hired more salesmen. Yes, we will hold them criminally accountable for what they have done. And then you got another issue. I want you all to think about this. Do you think that the CEOs of the fossil fuel industry today do not understand what their product is doing to this planet? Do you think their scientists have not made it clear for decades? They know, and yet they continue to do it, and they lie, and they donate money to these groups to try to obfuscate the issue. So we need corporate accountability. You know, some corporation wants to go out and make money, God bless them, that's great. But we do not need corporations to be colluding. We do not need monopolization of industry after industry. So to answer that question, yes, we will deal with the greed and corruption of the corporate elite and hold them accountable.
This is Medina Alamki. She's a real estate agent in Las Vegas. She's a supporter of yours. Medina?
Hey, Medina.
Good evening, Senator. Do you feel there should be a limit on how long people are on the welfare system? And do you have a plan to educate the people on assistance so they can go out and begin to support themselves to eventually get off welfare and become independent, learning a skill or a trade?
Okay, I don't believe there should be a limit because it depends on the individual circumstance. And we do have a plan. We have a plan that says that there is an enormous amount of work to be done in America, and we have got to educate and train people to do that work, whether it is in childcare, whether it's in teaching, whether it's in rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, whether it's in transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel. And that's why we believe in a federal guaranteed job program. You want a job, we'll find that job for you, because there's a ton of work that has to be done. And by the way, when we talk about welfare, I'll tell you what welfare programs I will end. People like Donald Trump, before he was president, got $800 million in subsidies and tax breaks to build luxury housing in New York. We're going to end that type of corporate welfare.
This is Diana Numajiri. She's a casino dealer who's currently undecided.
Hey, Diana.
Good evening, Senator. What was the last good book that you've read, and why?
The last book that I read, I'm always terrible at remembering titles, was a very scary book. I think it was called The Uninhabitable Earth, or something like that. And it talked about, and it really, I recommend it. There's another book out there by Bill McKibben, who's a good friend of mine from Vermont, also on climate change. And if you read the book, what they are saying is that there's some question, without getting people too upset, as to whether or not we even have the time to prevent the irreparable damage. But what the book says is we have got to move drastically to combat the growing threat to this planet of climate change. It was an excellent book. And this is an issue we need to talk about and we need to work on. But again, to me, climate change is a moral issue. We cannot turn our backs on future generations and leave them a planet and a microphone here, which is increasingly unhealthy and uninhabitable.
Now that our mics are dropping off, we're going to wrap this up. But just in the few seconds we have left, I think it was right before a New Hampshire primary, I asked you after Iowa if you consider yourself the Democratic frontrunner. Now after New Hampshire, do you?
Who cares? I mean, all I know is that...
I think the number 2 and 3 care.
That's good. But all I know is that we take no votes for granted. We are a hard-working campaign. We're so appreciative of the hundreds of thousands of volunteers that we have. So I can tell you, we're working right now in Nevada, trying to bring out the vote. We're working in South Carolina. We're working for Super Tuesday. We're going to work every single day as hard as we can to win the nomination, to defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country, and to transform our economy and our government. So finally, we have in Washington a government that works for all of us and not just big money interests.
Senator Bernie Sanders, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Coming up next, former Mayor Pete Buttigieg joins Aaron Burnett. Then I'll be back with Senator Amy Klobuchar. Stay right there.
So we both know there's Nazis living in America.
You know what the best revenge is? Revenge.
Let's do a little dance, make a little love, and get down tonight.
Showtime.
It's about justice for 11 million people.
Daddy?
Yeah?
Who's Peter?
Well, sweetie, he's your great-great-grandfather. Here, does he look like me?
Yeah.
Your family's story is waiting to be shared at Ancestry.com. Everything your trip needs for everyone you love. Expedia.
Whoa, what is this stuff?
That's a dinosaur. That's a rotary phone. It's a hairy toy that spoke gibberish.
What's that?
This was called a wallet. It holds pieces of plastic to pay for things or to show your age or who you are.
Well, what if you lost it? Are you not you?
You're always you. With Clear, you are your ticket, your reservation, your credit card, and your ID.
Cool.
Enroll today at clearme.com.
Skip to the good part with Alka-Seltzer Plus, now with 25% more concentrated power. Nothing works faster for powerful cold relief.
Oh, what a relief it is.
So fast.
Man, I'm thinking tacos.
Hey, you guys look like foodies. Would you like to try our trashy back ribs?
Oh, that sounds great.
Everything is locally harvested, farm to dumpster to table.
What else you got?
We have a melon rind stew. Comes with a pork and bean reduction.
Yeah, we're gonna just do a lap and we'll come back.
Okay, well, we'll be here. Man, why isn't this working?
My mouth is watering.
I think that's just your rabies flaring up.
With Geico, the savings keep on going. Just like this sequel. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
We got crystal pot pies.
So, you want to be the leader of the free world? Just how far will you go to get what you want? Will you turn friends into enemies? Will you break your own rules? The race for the White House is on.
The Future Kia of Clovis winter sales event is going on now. Get big savings on over 200 new Kias, including 55 tough and ready SUVs, Kia Sportage, Sorento, and Telluride. Save big now at Future Kia of Clovis or cloviskia.com 24/7.
Whether on the court or in the stands, from the geeks to the Greeks, there's no debate. Xfinity's got the HBCU experience covered. Just say HBCU into your X1 voice remote. Catch live games, battle of the bands, and more. Even get live scores and stats. Best of all, watch it all on the go with the Xfinity Stream app. Plus, enjoy Netflix, YouTube, and Pandora all in one place. So when it comes to HBCU entertainment, Xfinity has you covered. Simple, easy, awesome.
The Future Kia of Clovis winter sales event is going on now. Get big savings on over 200 new Kias. Drive home a new Optima today for just $19,795 after 2,500 Kia customer cash. Save big now at Future Kia of Clovis or cloviskia.com 24/7.
Democratic presidential town halls continue next, only on CNN.
Welcome back to CNN's Town Hall event. We are live from the theater at Sahara, Las Vegas. I'm Erin Burnett. We are just 4 days away from the Nevada caucuses, a crucial contest for Democrats in the crowded 2020 primary campaign. The candidates are making one more final pitch to Nevadans, including the undecided voters right here in our audience tonight. Now, we just heard from Senator Bernie Sanders. We're going to keep it going now with one of his top competitors for the nomination, the former mayor of South Bend, Indiana, Pete Buttigieg.
Hello.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to begin tonight with a question about the president and what's going on with the judicial system in this country, President Trump. Tomorrow, the leaders of an independent group of federal judges, I don't know if you all saw this, but they're going to be having an emergency meeting, and they're going to be talking about President Trump and his Attorney General Bill Barr, how they've been handling these politically sensitive cases like Roger Stone. More than 2,000 former Justice Department officials, as you know, have called for Barr to resign. Do you think he should, Mayor?
Absolutely. This really is an emergency. It is an emergency of legitimacy in our justice system. Our justice system only works if it is immune from the interference of politicians. And obviously this president, especially now that he feels emboldened after getting away with what he got away with during the impeachment process, thinks he can just lean in and ask others to do the same and interfere. And one of the first criteria for my Attorney General is that she or he will understand that she or he is the lawyer for the American people and not the personal lawyer of the President of the United States.
I want to bring in Jamie Shea in our audience. She's from Henderson. She is retired, but she is volunteering this week, Mayor Buttigieg, for the Democratic Party in the caucuses on Saturday, and she is supporting you. Go ahead, Jamie.
Hi, Mayor Pete, and thanks for coming tonight. You've not had a great amount of success turning around the lack of support of people of color. With your successes in Iowa and New Hampshire, your campaign has renewed excitement. But do you have a plan to gain the trust and support of more people of color as your campaign moves forward, and if so, how?
Yes, first of all, thank you for your work for the party. It's so important. And one of the reasons I'm proud to belong to our party is that our party reflects the diversity of our country. And of course, we're thrilled with the successes that we've had, top 2 finishes in the first 2 states. But most of the racial diversity of the electorate is in the states yet to vote, beginning right here in Nevada. And I view this not as a political question, but as a question of how to make sure we can lead in order not just to win, but to deserve to win. Now, the reality is that voters of color have every reason to be especially skeptical of politicians, especially new politicians. When voters of color, and I'm thinking in particular of black voters who have been the most reliable and loyal constituency in the Democratic Party, feeling that politics has not delivered for them, often feeling that our party has taken their support for granted, I understand why that bar is so high. Not only that, but I am from a city that has a complicated story, just like America has a complicated story. I'm proud of the things that we were able to get right, cutting black unemployment, cutting black poverty in our city. We were nationally recognized for race-informed work on economic opportunity. But we've also had tremendous struggles and a lot of unfinished business, especially when it comes to racial justice and policing. I am seeking to earn the support of voters of color, first of all, by asking for it and demonstrating that I understand that I am not entitled to anybody's support, and by laying out a vision for how the future can be a better one, by proactive steps on everything from economic empowerment to reforms to our legal system that I know we must deliver in our time so that this can become a country where your race has no bearing on your health or on your wealth or on your life expectancy or on your experience with law enforcement. I also know that nobody is experiencing the pain of living under this administration more than voters of color. And that is why it is so important that we select the nominee who will put an end to the Trump administration. And I will continue working to demonstrate, to show, not just tell, that I am building the best campaign to do just that.
So how do you talk about, obviously, Nevada and South Carolina, and these are going to be the diverse states that are going to vote. And you have made progress, but you've got a long way to go when you look at the polls with people of color. Are you worried you're running out of time?
Again, I'm worried that America is running out of time. This is not just about my political fortunes. This is about whether our country can get this right. But what I'm going to do as a candidate is use every minute and every day that remains to find voters, look them in the eye, meet them where they are, and speak specifically to the challenges that Black and Latino and AAPI Americans face, that Native Americans face, that are of a piece with the American experience, but also unique challenges that deserve specific attention.
So our next question comes from Karen Keehan. She's over here, special education teacher. She works with students who have been emotionally traumatized, and she is also currently an undecided voter. Karen, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate it. As an educator here in Clark County School District, I participate in mandatory drills where I have lock my door, draw blinds, ask students to shut down computers. They lay down on the floor. Spread around the room. I explain they must be on the floor to avoid bullets coming through the windows and doors. To be more, and then they need to spread out to be more difficult targets. They need to also turn off any screens that they have to prevent light from attracting the attacker. What is your plan for remedying the terror that has become embedded in our schools?
It is heartbreaking to hear you walk through that because it's in the specific way you described it. I'm thinking about terms like dispersion of targets and the difference between cover and concealment that are things that I learned as part of military training. And part of why I believed I was in the military was to serve potentially in conflict zones so that kids in schools in America would never have to have that experience. And to see what we are accepting in terms of the expectation that this is just normal, that kids are going to have active shooter drills sometimes before they're old enough to learn how to read, shows you that this country has its priorities wrong. Actually, no, Washington has its priorities wrong. Because, you know, you look at something like universal background checks. It won't save every life, but it would make a big difference. This is something that the vast majority, not just of Democrats, but of Republicans and gun owners already believe we ought to do. It's 80 or 90% support in America, and we still can't get it through Washington. It shows you what has to change in our political system. It shows the need for presidential leadership on this issue, because you are in such an important field. This, of all things, should not be your problem, and it certainly shouldn't be the problem of the children that you serve.
So this weekend, as you know, was the one-year anniversary of the Parkland shooting. And the shooter was 19 years old. He had purchased his firearm. Florida then moved to change that. So now the minimum age to purchase a gun in that state is 21 years old. Several of your opponents want to do the same thing on a federal level, make you have to be 21 years old to buy a gun legally. Do you support that?
I would be very open to that. We have to do whatever we can to save lives. And it's not just background checks, it's not just age of purchase, it's also red flag laws, ways to disarm domestic abusers or intervene when somebody is a danger, especially because the crisis of gun violence in our country, it's not just murder, it's suicide. And many of those suicides are preventable. And I believe we also need to take action on assault weapons, because the kinds of weaponry I trained on in the military has no business anywhere near an American school.
I want to bring it. Sorry, it was 2 years to Parkland. So yeah. I want to bring in Alex Giuliani, a law student at UNLV, who is currently undecided. Alex.
Hello. Hi. We have seen our government neglect public education, welfare, and Social Security because their donors have no stake in those programs. By allowing private health insurance to exist under your universal health care plan, do you worry that those who can afford private insurance will lose their vested interest in maintaining the quality of national health care?
Well, what I'm proposing is a national health insurance program that I believe will be so good that everybody, or almost everybody, over time will choose it. And if I'm right, then it will eventually become the Medicare plan for everybody. But I'm not willing to assume that we're right. This is where I part ways with my friend Senator Sanders. He believes that we should require everybody to adopt that plan, whether they want to or not. When actually there's a lot of folks here in the state of Nevada, for example, culinary workers come to mind, who negotiated for good private plans, often traded wages as part of that. Who are we to tell them they have to give it up? I believe that we should trust individuals to make the right choice for them. But I also believe that support will exist for this plan that I'm proposing we create. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I think is striking about the moment we're living in is we have a powerful American majority ready to support this reform, what I'm talking about, creating a public plan for everybody. Just as long as we don't kick people off of their private plans, then this has widespread support, which is really important at a moment when we've got to try to unify and not further polarize the American people. It solves the problem, it brings us together. It's also paid for, which is more than you can say for Senator Sanders' plan. And I believe it is the best way to make sure that there is no such thing as an uninsured American.
So Senator Sanders actually has called the private health insurance system that we have now corrupt. That's the word that he's used. Do you also believe it is corrupt? And if you do, why do you want to leave it in place?
Well, again, I think that Americans should be able to decide for themselves. Now, the private insurance industry attacked my plan the moment that it came out. I think because they don't want the competition. And what we're going to do is we're going to create this quality public plan. Either they'll come up with something better and they'll stay in business, or they'll fail to come up with something better and they'll go out of business. Either way works. The important thing is not whether the government's providing your coverage. The important thing is that you get great coverage one way or the other. And I'll leave it to the private players to figure out if they can measure up.
So you said undocumented immigrants should have been able to receive coverage through Obamacare. This is something that you've said in the past, and you've addressed that in your health plan. Now, let's just say you're the President of the United States, you go to Congress, you're trying to pass the bill, and that becomes the roadblock, that you're just not able to get it through if you're going to provide access for undocumented immigrants. Would you be willing to put it aside, or is that something you will not drop?
I'm going to fight to make sure that anybody can participate on this plan. Because if we are excluding people from the ability to get in on health insurance, we're not just harming them, we're punishing ourselves. We become a less healthy country. More people will be in emergency rooms because they can't get the preventive treatment that they need up front, and more people will be sick. Nobody wins when that is the case. And so I will do everything in my power to make sure that when we deliver this plan, we do it in a way that everybody can participate.
Is it fair to say, just to be clear, that health insurance for undocumented immigrants is a deal breaker for you?
I mean, I can't game out every amendment or poison pill, every change they're going to try to make to bring the package together. What I'll say is that that is one of the pillars of the plan as I see it.
All right, I want to bring in Donald Fagan. He is a student at UNLV, currently undecided, so go ahead, Donald.
Hi, Mayor Pete. Candidates such as Senator Sanders have criticized your campaign's support from billionaires. Many Americans feel like their voices are often disregarded in favor of those with larger wallets. How can the average voter be certain that you will represent their interests first, and will you pledge to make overturning Citizens United and removing money from politics a day one priority as president?
So, the answer to your second question is yes, I will. Citizens United is a disaster for our democracy. And if what it takes to fix Citizens United is a constitutional amendment, then I think that's exactly what constitutional amendments are for. Let's not be afraid, and let's launch that fight on day one. And as far as defending the interests of those who aren't wealthy, I have the smallest wallet of anybody running for president right now. They did a ranking in Forbes magazine, and I'm officially the least wealthy presidential candidate right now. So when I'm talking about the interests of the middle class, I'm also talking about our own. And I got into politics, I got into campaigning in order to be part of solutions for folks like my neighbors, folks like my own family. And I also believe that at a time like this, we've got to get help from everybody who is willing to support our bold vision for the future. My campaign was driven and is driven by hundreds of thousands of individuals who have donated. Matter of fact, if you're watching right now, you can go to PeteForAmerica.com, send in $5 or $10, because that is the lifeblood of our campaign. But if there are some people, a lot wealthier than I am, who want to be part of that, who want to chip in, great, because we're getting ready to go up against Donald Trump and his allies, who have been raising hand over fist so much money in order to hold on to their grip on power. And my campaign is one that's never going to define itself by whose help we reject. My campaign is about belonging. It's about bringing everybody into the picture and standing side by side with everybody determined to make sure that we end the Donald Trump presidency and deliver a better future for Americans.
So when you said you want to not be defined by who you reject, last hour, I don't know if you heard Senator Sanders, but he would not commit to accepting money from Michael Bloomberg if Michael Bloomberg is not the Democratic nominee, right? He's pledged to help whoever is. Would you take his money and his support if you are the nominee?
Sure. As a matter of fact, look right now, obviously, I'm competing against Mayor Bloomberg. We have, I think, different approaches and different visions. But, his philanthropy supported a $1 million effort in our community to help low-income people get transportation to go to work. I'm not going to reject that help because it came from a very wealthy person. This is the moment to bring everybody that we can into this effort. And I promise exactly one thing in return for any contribution, which is we're going to take that contribution and use it to go beat Donald Trump.
So, you talk about something he did in your community, but obviously Amy Klobuchar has said Bloomberg is, her words, she's hiding behind his ad spending. Elizabeth Warren says he's bought his way onto the debate stage. Bernie Sanders has accused him of trying to buy the entire election. Pretty simple question, yes or no? Do you think Michael Bloomberg is trying to buy the Democratic nomination for president?
Yes. Yes. I mean, what else do you call it? What else do you call it when you dip into your endless reserves of millions and billions and don't go through the process of campaigning in states like Nevada or Iowa or New Hampshire, humbling yourself, going into the diners and the backyards, looking eye to eye to vote? Look, my campaign wouldn't exist if all that mattered was how much money and fame you start with and how you get yourself on the air. We built this thing from nothing. And we built it by having those conversations and letting voters pick apart what you have to say. And to try to just go around that by throwing colossal sums of money on television shows you what's wrong with our system. And I also believe it's not the best way to pick our nominee or the next president.
So I want to bring in Kristen Macatini now. She is a realtor and she is from Henderson, Nevada. She previously had supported Senator Kamala Harris, so she is now undecided. Go ahead with your question, please.
Thanks. Hi, Mayor Pete. Thanks for spending time with us tonight. As a fellow Episcopalian and Christian, it is very frustrating to hear so much of the public discourse that assumes that being a Christian equals evangelical Christian conservatism. My Episcopalian belief in Christianity teaches me the values of Scripture, tradition, and reason. I am a Democrat and a Christian. You can be both. How can you use your voice as president to share this viewpoint more broadly when the right thinks they own it?
Well, first of all, I'm glad to be with a fellow Episcopalian. And I agree. Look, it starts with sending the message that God does not belong to a political party. And by the way, you know, it's also very important to make clear that the presidency and the Constitution and my presidency will belong to people of every religion and of no religion equally. This is not about imposing my faith on anybody. But I gotta say, like you, I find a message in Scripture that is very different from what the political right seems to want to talk about all the time. A lot about poverty, a lot about compassion, a lot about humility that I seek in my imperfect way to live up to, and that does have implications for how I will approach public office. And the time has come to send a message that people of faith have a choice. And if you belong to a Christian tradition, or any moral or religious tradition that emphasizes making yourself useful to the oppressed, and standing with and identifying with the prisoner, and welcoming the stranger. Stranger, by the way, is another word for immigrant. Yes, that has implications in public life, and I won't be afraid to talk about how my positions are informed by my faith.
So, you know, to the point you talk about God not belonging to any kind of a political party, at the last CNN town hall, you said, if your faith calls upon you to help the marginalized, those who are afflicted, to comfort people, to strive for humility and decency, as the Christian faith does. And then I quote you, then I just can't imagine that requires of you that you be anywhere near this president. Do you think it is impossible to be a Christian and support President Trump?
Well, I'm not going to tell other Christians how to be Christians, but I will say I cannot find any compatibility between the way this president conducts himself and anything that I find in Scripture. Now, I guess that's my interpretation, but I think that's a lot of people's interpretation, and that interpretation deserves a voice.
All right, we are going to be back with more from presidential candidate, former Mayor Pete Buttigieg, right after this.
As a struggling actor, I need all the breaks that I can get. At Liberty Butchiemug.
Cut.
Liberty Bibbity.
Cut. We'll dub it.
Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
5G will change business in America. T-Mobile has the first and only nationwide 5G network. And with it, you can shape the future. We've invested $30 billion and built our new 5G network for businesses like yours. While some 5G signals only go a few blocks, T-Mobile 5G goes for miles. No other 5G signal goes farther or is more reliable in business. Tomorrow is in your hands. Partner with T-Mobile for business today.
I am totally blind, and Non-24 can throw my days and nights out of sync, keeping me from the things I love to do. Talk to your doctor and call 844-214-2424.
Dry shampoo leaving residue? Not anymore. New Fructis Invisible Dry Shampoo, powered by oil-absorbing rice starch. Invisible on hair, no residue. Just non-stop refreshed hair for 24 hours. New Fructis Invisible Dry Shampoo by Garnier, naturally.
Yeah, we're gonna need 500 more units pronto.
We don't have that kind of money right now, Carl.
You will in 10 minutes. That's how long it will take you to get funding through Cabbage. I know. I'm 10 minutes in the future spokes guy.
What's happening?
And I'm 10 days in the future spokes guy. That Cabbage funding helped you win the Gundelfinger account. Congratulations.
What's a Gundelfinger?
And I'm from 10 years in the future.
Cabbage. Business funding in as little as 10 minutes.
What'd I miss?
Have you ever wondered what the motorcade driver drives?
when they're not in a motorcade. This one drives a Volkswagen Passat.
Let's do this!
What are you doing?
Gonna demo the bathroom.
Bathfitter custom made our new bath to fit perfectly over the old one, so there's no demo or mess.
No demo?
Remodel your bath with no demo in as little as 1 day. Call now or visit bathfitter.com for a free consultation.
Yes, I adored him. Yes, I was in love with him. But I was very let down. There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
The Windsors, Inside the Royal Dynasty. Sundays at 10 on CNN.
Xfinity presents.
He's up! This fight is a draw! Bring them all on! I'm the one man army!
Wilder versus Fury 2. Safe boxing into your X1 voice remote to order now.
It's a President's Day celebration at Selma Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Now's your chance to score with our MVP. Introducing maximum value pricing. Savings will be clearly posted. New 2019 Ram 1500s with $10,844 net savings off MSRP. Or buy new 2019 Jeep Renegades with $6,612 net savings off MSRP. These are MVP savings that you don't want to miss. Hurry into Selma Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram today.
The Nevada Caucuses. Special live coverage starts Saturday at 2 Eastern on CNN.
And welcome back to Sahara, Las Vegas. We're here with Democratic presidential candidate, the former Mayor Pete Buttigieg, for a live town hall. So one thing that people might not know about you is that you speak 8 languages. Am I missing one?
Depends what you mean by speak. Some better than others.
Okay. All right, but among them, Norwegian and Maltese. Which has a lot of X's in it and all kinds of things. So, I was thinking, like, could you say something in one of them? And I'm like, here we are, and I didn't want to make it, too easy, but something like, I don't know, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Oh, wow. Yeah, let's see. In Maltese would be something like Stada fi Vegas, Bai fi Vegas, I think. A bunch of Maltese people are going to tweet me how I got that wrong.
Yeah, there's no winning on this one, by the way.
Norwegian, det som skjedde på Vegas ska ligga där. I don't know. Any Norwegians here? I don't know.
You couldn't get immediately.
As far as everybody here knows, that was right.
Okay.
I hope.
So which of them? Because when people hear 8 languages, most of us speak one, or we struggle to kind of comprehend a second. What was the hardest to learn?
Maltese is actually really hard because it's this mix. So my father immigrated from Malta. It's one of the smallest countries in the world. It's got its own language, and it's a mix of everything. It's a Semitic language. It's got parts of Arabic in it. There's a bunch of Italian and some English going on. Like the basic way to say hello in Maltese is to say all right, and thank you in Maltese is thank you, and but you also say grazie, which is Italian. It's like a whole, but the languages that are the most different from English are obviously the most challenging, and you don't get to practice a lot of them.
No, I know. Well, like I say, it's all those X's. Is there a time, though, that you can think where knowing one of these languages helped you help someone else?
Yeah, I remember the day the travel ban went into effect. And we were in Houston. At the time, I was seeking to be DNC chair and decided to go down and participate in the protests on the travel ban. And there was a rumor going that an Iranian family had been caught up in the situation that they were being caught at customs and weren't being allowed through because of the ban. Anyway, we were there at the terminal, and there was this amazing scene. It was a protest that had been organized almost on the spot by a young woman who was a server at a Carrabba's. It showed you the power of online organizing. And within a few hours, hundreds of people were at the airport, and we were there calling for the travel ban to be lifted. And then there was a stay, I think, in court. And so this family started coming through, and they were being mobbed by TV reporters. And I realized that they might not have had any idea of why there were all these these protests or cameras or anything. So I went up and I learned to go to deploy to Afghanistan. I learned Dari, which is kind of like Farsi, which is the language of Iran. So I see this man emerge, kind of Middle Eastern appearance. His wife is in a hijab. They got 3 or 4 little kids, a bunch of suitcases. They look exhausted. And I went up to him and started trying to ask, are you okay? Do you understand what's happening? Do you need any help? Everybody's here to support you. And the more I tried to say this in Farsi, the clearer it became that he didn't understand me at all. And then I realized he was an Arabic speaker, and I studied Arabic in college. I'm not very good at it, but I'd studied it, and had this conversation. He had no idea what was going on. He was actually Jordanian, and he just wanted to go home. And meanwhile, because I'm wearing a tie, the reporters from one of the local TV stations think that I'm his lawyer, and they start interviewing me. And one of them was from Telemundo, which was in Spanish, and they were asking me to try to ask him questions in Arabic, which I'm not that good at, and they were asking me in Spanish. And it was a real mess, but in the end, I just realized there was this crowd chanting and cheering, and they didn't know what was going on, so I just grabbed the luggage cart to help him and his wife and just got him out of there to the garage where his cousin was waiting to pick him up.
Got him where he was going. All right, I want to bring in Dave Cormero. He is a retired patent attorney from here in Las Vegas, and you say you're undecided as well. Go ahead with your question, Dave.
Mayor Buttigieg, welcome to our humble little town.
Great to be here.
I hate that anybody has to ask this question, but Mayor Pete, if you do become the nominee, how are you going to deal with the almost certain flood of personal attacks based on your sexual orientation?
Well, it'll happen, and I'm ready. When I decided to come out when I decided to come out it was during a re-election year in South Bend. I was up for mayor. I decided after my deployment that I was just too old to not have a personal life, and made that personal decision, not knowing what the effect on my career would be or on being able to win. Mike Pence was the governor of Indiana then. And it was tough sledding, as it still is, for many LGBTQ people in the state where I come from. And I just decided I had to do it. And what wound up happening was that I got reelected with 80% of the vote. And what that tells me was that at the end of the day, people were ready to judge me based on the job I was doing for them. But I also think it's important to recognize that change on these issues and acceptance and equality, even though it's got a long way to go, it's also happened at a pace that a lot of people are struggling with. And I think for those who haven't quite found their way all the way to the right side of history, it's important to beckon them in the right direction. I remember not long after I started dating Chasten, and I ran into a woman I knew in South Bend, older generation, a little more conservative, and she kind of gave me this mischievous pat on the arm, and she said, I met your friend the other day, and he is wonderful. That could have been a moment to give her a lecture on the difference between, your friend and your partner. But what I realized was, in her way, she was kind of inching toward the direction of acceptance. She felt good about it. She felt good that she was moving in that way. And I think at a moment like this, it's really important that we find those who are maybe not quite there yet and help them get there instead of clubbing them over the head and telling them they're bad people until they see it just the right way. And I think that's a really important part of where our politics needs to go.
So last week, Rush Limbaugh made homophobic comments about you, and he said that America's not ready, he doesn't think, for a gay president. Now, then Limbaugh, I don't know if you know, but he gave this whole story today that President Trump told him, don't apologize for saying anything you said. Publicly, though, Trump says that he would not have a problem supporting a gay candidate. Do you take him at his word?
Well, not if he's sending out his supporters to talk in this way. And look, I mean, the idea of the likes of Rush Limbaugh or Donald Trump lecturing anybody on family values, I mean, I'm sorry, but one thing about my marriage is it's never involved me having to send hush money to a porn star after cheating on my spouse with him or her. So, they want to debate family values? Let's debate family values. I'm ready.
Our next question is from Nick Elefantis. He is a high school government teacher. He is from Las Vegas and also undecided. Nicholas, please.
Good evening, Mayor Buttigieg. Hi. It's widely acknowledged that the public education system in Nevada and across the nation is broken. Part of it is due to the attrition of teachers. We're faced with low salaries and crippling student debt. What can be done to help keep hardworking, highly qualified teachers in their job instead of looking for the door?
You may see Chasten, who's right next to you, is nodding along because he's a teacher with high student debt and who has dealt with low compensation. So we as a household, we understand what you're going through, and it is so important that we recruit and motivate and empower teachers to be in that profession. It's such an important profession, and yet, as we talked about earlier, teachers are now being expected to convert into highly trained armed guards. If there's a threat to the classroom, you're finding part of your job automated by the over-reliance on test administration. And then there's the simple fact that teachers are not paid enough. We can do something about that, and we should do something about that with federal funds. So I'm proposing that we triple the funds going into Title I in particular. Those are dollars that go into low-income districts, which is where having a great teacher is especially impactful, because low-income students and disproportionately black and brown students will perform better and earn more in the future, be more economically empowered if they have the best teachers. We also, I think, need to lift up the profession as a whole. I'm proposing we create a, I'm proposing that we create an education access corps. The idea would be to link up high-quality teaching programs across the country, and if you participate in them and then commit to teaching in one of those Title I programs, you have a portable teaching license you could take anywhere, and you get your student loans forgiven if you do have that debt in exchange for agreeing to be a teacher in such an important area. Bottom line is, as I like to say, is that if we respected our teachers just a little more like we do our soldiers and paid our teachers just a little more like we do our doctors, this country would be a better place for all of us.
So you were talking about federal funding and what you would do with federal funding. Elizabeth Warren, some of your opponents, have called for a complete freeze, no federal funding for new charter schools. Do you think that makes sense?
Well, I think that we need to not have a meat cleaver approach on this, but insist that any charter schools are set up in a way that will benefit traditional public schools too. It can't just be up to whether you win a lottery that you have opportunity. We've got to make sure that charters can have a role in piloting new ideas or innovations, but they have to be subject to the same accountability and the same scrutiny as traditional public schools, and they should be funded at a comparable level. So if we're talking about federal funds being used in a way that would tilt the scale, and then a charter school that gets more money says, see, we got better results, but it's just because they had more resources, that's not fair. What we've got to do is make sure that any innovations that are going on in the space of education go toward in a way that would ultimately reach students at every kind of traditional public school in the country. And I neglected to mention one other thing, talking about teachers and how important that job is. There are a lot of people in school buildings and in classrooms, teachers, but also paraprofessionals and other educators and support staff who are also very much underpaid, and it's important that we, I think, speak to that as well. I meant to mention that.
Jonathan Carter is also a teacher. He's a high school English teacher, part-time college instructor here in Las Vegas. Currently undecided, but I believe, Jonathan, leaning towards Mayor Pete. I don't know how he's done tonight for you, but that's what you were, I think, coming in the door. Go ahead with your question.
Across, then.
Good evening, Mayor.
Hi.
The President of the United States has been accused of not always telling the truth about some of the most basic issues concerning Americans.
That's diplomatic.
I try. If you are in a debate with him, what will be your approach to ensuring that his mistruths do not go unchecked while still communicating your own vision for the country and not allowing yourself to become nothing more than a fact checker?
You know, it's a great point. I think this president is kind of like one of those Chinese finger traps. You know, the harder you pull, the more you get stuck in them. Because he has this way of commanding our attention by doing something outrageous or telling a lie. And if he tells a lie, you got to correct it. If he does something racist, you got to confront it. If he insults a war hero, you got to stand up to it. And yet, the moment you do that, you're starting to get sucked into his game. And so I believe the discipline that's going to be required of any nominee, and the discipline I plan to bring to that debate stage, is to be ready very quickly to correct his lies and to confront his wrongdoing. But to put it in its place quickly enough that we deny him his famous ability to change the subject. Because the real subject of this election is our lives. And that's a winning issue for us. We're the ones trying to get your raise. We're the ones ready to deliver paid family leave, serious about climate change, prepared to do something about gun violence, standing up for workers and unions on the things that are going to affect whether our lives go better in the future. I believe we've got all the best answers. I think he knows that, and that's why he needs us arguing about whatever crazy nonsense he can use to dominate the news. And so my overall philosophy on how to defeat this president, especially how to debate this president, is yeah, you got to stand up to him sometimes, but the less we're talking about him, the more we're talking about you, and that's how we're going to win.
You know, it's amazing how many people just in casual conversation talk about this, the debates, and how they imagine the debates being between Trump and whomever the Democratic nominee is. So you touched on this a little bit, but how would you, on a debate stage, balance between responding to him, whatever it is he's saying, or sometimes, as you mentioned, it could be 5 or 6 topics in one answer, responding and not letting him dominate the conversation?
Well, I think it's to remember what the election is about. I believe that every election is about the voter asking one question. How's my life going to be different if you're president instead of you? And when it comes to the things that are going to decide our lives and our children's lives going better or worse, we have not only a strong message, we have the majority of the American people with us. You know, Democrats are so used to being in a defensive crouch politically, we forget this sometimes. But the American people are with us on wages, with us on health, even with us on guns and with us on immigration reform, issues where we used to hesitate to say what we really believe. The American people are already there. We just got to make sure that we keep the focus on those basic questions, and I will maintain the discipline to keep that at the center of this election and of the debates themselves.
And so how do you reach voters, because you're going to want some of these voters to listen to you, to possibly vote for you, who get their news from sources that are very friendly to the president and may not be aware of the fact that he may be saying something false?
Yeah, well, that's why I go on some of those networks. It's a controversial decision. I took some heat in my party. But in addition to appearing on networks like CNN, you're going to see me on networks like Fox News. Not because I'm under any illusions about their objectivity, but how can, in a world where people are starting to get their own information from their own sources and even have their own facts, how can we be surprised if somebody's not responding to my message if they've literally never even heard it? How can we be mad at them for believing a lie if it's the only thing that ever got to them? And those tendencies are only going to increase with these social media bubbles. That's why I think it's very important to pop those bubbles, to cross through different media, and I'm doing it as a candidate. I'll do it as president too.
So our next question is from Brian Lindsay. He owns a moving and a storage company here in Las Vegas. He's currently leaning towards supporting you, Mayor Buttigieg. Go ahead, Brian.
Good evening, Mayor Pete. Hi. Good evening, Chess. Welcome to Las Vegas, to both of you.
Thanks.
Measures to enact legislation to protect our climate and natural resources invariably run into GOP resistance, typically presented as, this will cost us jobs, or this will hurt the economy.
Yeah.
How do you protect our climate and protect our economy from job loss simultaneously? And would you support a specific legislative proposal for a carbon tax and rebate?
I will. That's the answer to the last part. Because I believe it would play a very important role in making sure that our economy and the prices in our economy accurately reflect the true cost of business as usual. Remember, the most costly thing we could possibly do is to stay on the path that we're on. And that's not just a moral cost, that's a dollars and cents cost, because the catastrophic effects of climate change, which we're already beginning to see, are only going to increase. So the idea of a carbon tax and rebate, or a carbon fee and dividend, whatever you want to call it, is that we assess a fee on the price of carbon, but at least in my plan, we would rebate that right back out to the American people. And I do it on a progressive basis so that most low and middle income people would be made more than whole. This is not about taking money out of the economy. This is about making sure that the economy accurately reflects the cost of carbon pollution and climate change. And that's part, but only part, of how we're going to meet these needs. Now, you're right, there has been a lot of partisan resistance to doing the right thing, whether it's climate, whether it's protections for federal lands, for air, and for water. But here's another example, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with guns, where actually there's a lot more agreement among the American people than there is on the floor in Congress. Right now, most Americans, including in conservative states, believe in protecting public lands, believe in making sure we have clean air and water. Now, there are some who have been made to feel like they are part of the problem, if you're working in certain kinds of industry, for example. Ironically, those are some of the very people whose skills we will need to recruit in the next generation of those industries that have to be carbon-free. There's no question there will be a transition, and I'm proposing that we invest over $200 billion in supporting workers through that transition. But we also estimate that we will create at least 3 million net new jobs by taking the action we must as a country to mobilize and fight climate change. And some of these jobs are might sound a little newfangled, high-tech, green jobs. A lot of them are jobs that are perfectly easy to understand right now. I'm talking about building trades. I'm talking about union carpenters and electrical workers and insulators and glaziers that we're going to need just to get our buildings to where they will have to be retrofitted for us to stay ahead of the climate challenge. So we got to break this idea that we're choosing between doing the right thing for our climate and doing the right thing for our economy. The only way forward for our economy, for our future, for our children, and for our climate is to step up, come together, deal with carbon pollution, and lead the world in doing something about it.
So earlier tonight, go ahead and have a drink. Senator Sanders was talking about the Green New Deal, which he supports. And one of the key tenets of the Green New Deal is a federal jobs guarantee, which he happens to also support. Do you support a federal jobs guarantee?
Well, I want everybody to have an opportunity to work, but I wouldn't structure it in the same way that Senator Sanders is talking about. What I would do is make sure not only that we're supporting everyone's ability to get training for jobs that are growing. I mean, remember, we have shortages right now in key areas from direct care workers to educators.
Sure.
But also, I'm proposing that we create a national service program, 1 million paid voluntary national service opportunities a year to help get people that experience of working on something important. In fact, a big part of it would be a climate corps. And then other parts of it could be decided by local communities so that we set everybody on the path to success, whether they're going to ultimately go to college or whether they're going directly into the workforce.
All right, we're going to take a very brief break. When we come back, we'll have more with Mayor Pete Buttigieg right after this.
A sommelier searches for the perfect wine. But I hear a different calling, the call of a schmear of cream cheese. For I am a sommelier. I practice my craft at Philadelphia. Here, we use only the freshest milk. Cat one, go, go! And the finest ingredients.
What is this?
Until perfection is achieved.
He's ready. Schmears!
Philadelphia, schmear perfection.
I work hard and I want my money to work hard too. So I use my Freedom Unlimited card. Even when I'm spending, I'm earning 1.5% cash back with everything I buy. Earn on my favorite soup. Got it. Earning on that Eclair. Don't touch it yet. Let me get the big one. Nope. This one? Nope. This one? No. Let me get them all. I'm gonna get them all. Just the basics. Can you double bag this right here? Earn 1.5% cash back on everything you buy with Freedom Unlimited. Can you also tell me what it is? Chase, make more of what's yours.
Buckle up for some insurance theme fun at Progressive One.
Ride the totally realistic traffic jam.
Traffic jam!
And the world's first never bump bumper cars. It's a real savings hootenanny with options that fit your budget.
That's fun for the whole family.
Only at Progressive.
Maybe an insurance park was a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yep.
In America, we all count, no matter where we call home, how we worship, or who we love. And the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Because this is the count that informs where hundreds of billions in funding will go each year for things like education, healthcare, and programs that touch us all. Shape your future. Start here. Learn more at 2020census.gov.
It's either the assurance of a 165-point certification process, or it isn't. It's either testing an array of advanced safety systems, or it isn't. It's either the peace of mind of a standard unlimited mileage warranty, or it isn't. For those who never settle, it's either Mercedes-Benz Certified Pre-Owned, or it isn't. The Mercedes-Benz Certified Pre-Owned sales event, now through March 2nd, only at your authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer.
I had a dream. Jimmy Carter asked me why I wanted his job, and I told him I didn't want his job. I want to be president.
Race for the White House, Reagan versus Carter, Sunday at 9 on CNN.
He's been a leader throughout the country for the past 12 years. Mr. Michael Bloomberg is here.
Leadership in action. Mayor Bloomberg and President Obama worked together in the fight for gun safety laws, to improve education, and to develop innovative ways to help teens gain the skills needed to find good jobs.
At a time when Washington is divided in old ideological battles, he shows us what can be achieved when we bring people together to seek pragmatic solutions.
I'm Mike Bloomberg, and I approve this message.
It's a President's Day celebration at the Selma Auto Mall. Now's your chance to score with our MVP. Introducing maximum value pricing. Savings will be clearly posted on every vehicle. Pre-owned Hondas and Kias starting under $9,000. Good credit, fair credit, no credit, we can help. Selma Auto Mall's MVP event scores you a winning deal. Only during the President's Day celebration. Get your MVP savings today at the Selma Auto Mall.
The Windsors, Inside the Royal Dynasty, Sundays at 10 on CNN.
And welcome back. We are live from Las Vegas with former Mayor Pete Buttigieg. So I want to ask you about something else that happened this morning. And I know you're out in the campaign trail, but I know there's no way you missed this. President Trump commuting the sentence of the former Illinois governor and Celebrity Apprentice contestant, Rod Blagojevich, the former New York Police Commissioner Bernie Kerik, Michael Milken, the financier, and a former NFL owner. My question, though, is who would be at the top of your list for possible presidential pardons?
I would start with nonviolent drug offenders caught up in the racial disparities of the failed war on drugs. I mean, look, I actually think presidential clemency power can be an important part of how we decarcerate a country that is shockingly over-incarcerated. I mean, if incarceration made a country safe, we'd be the safest country in the world, and we're not. It's bad enough just by the numbers, but when you add to that the racial disparities of who has been incarcerated, often for nonviolent offenses, or those who have aged out of being any threat and could contribute in their communities, that's where I would be paying my attention. This president seems like he's never met a corrupt politician he didn't like. It's one thing about him that actually is bipartisan, is his fondness for corrupt politicians. And it's just, to me, the absolute wrong direction to even think about that pardon power.
I want to bring in Chelsea Johnson. She's a student at Nevada State College who is undecided tonight. Go ahead, Chelsea.
Hi, Mayor Pete.
Hi.
I was wondering what you plan to do on protecting everyday citizens' valuable data that has been collected and sold by social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram.
What a great question. And it's an example of one of the issues that the next president's going to face that hadn't even been thought about really a few years or decades ago. And we don't have a national policy on data security or on data privacy. Different states have them, so basically we have 50 different policies across the country. And not only that, we're relying on very outdated legal protections. Just think about this. When you download an app, you have that thing you got to scroll through about 18 pages of fine print, and then you just click agree, right? Nobody reads what's in there. There could be anything in there. But in the eyes of the law, that counts as a legitimate, legal, binding document on your relationship with that company and what's going on with your data. It's why I believe we need to set a national standard, even when you give your data to a company, on what they can and can't do with it. Certain rights that we have over data, especially when companies are making money off of it. And that means accountability for the big tech companies like Facebook and Google and Amazon, but also companies of any size can act in very problematic ways with our data. So the time has come to create a body of law that will set those left and right boundaries. We can't just leave it to the companies to regulate themselves the way we have been. And we need leaders who can understand this. You know, we've seen several times now the spectacle of a tech executive appearing before a committee of elected officials who make it abundantly clear that they have no concept of what it is they're supposed to be regulating. We have to make sure we bring the right expertise, not just in elected office, but in terms of who is appointed to hold these companies accountable and establish a new and tighter framework for what they can and can't do with our personal data.
This is Lisa Kruger. She's a former precinct captain and delegate at the Nevada Convention in 2016, also a retired flight attendant. She's undecided, but I believe leaning towards supporting Mayor Buttigieg. Yes. Okay, there we go. Go ahead.
Hi, Mayor Pete. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Also, congratulations on all fronts. You're doing an amazing job, and it's wonderful. I think so. You are one of the most exciting candidates that I've seen in decades, but I am curious why the senior population seems to love you so much, and the younger crowd, the students, aren't quite as up to date with that. I have an 86-year-old father, and he loves you. He says, Mayor Pete. In fact, he thinks you're a doctor. He goes, Dr. Pete. I'm like, no, he's a mayor. Right. He's a mayor. But he loves you, and he's so behind you. And then I asked my 32-year-old son, and he said, well, I mean, yeah, he's okay. I'm like, oh. So I'm just curious about that.
Yeah. So I don't know all the reasons for that. You know, even when I was running for mayor, when I was in my 20s, we found that older voters were likely to be the most supportive. I wonder maybe if it's partly that the longer you've been here and you've seen leaders of different ages and generations succeed and fail, maybe it demystifies a little bit the idea that age is the same thing as wisdom. I don't know. What I do know is that we're going to continue reaching out to everybody. Of course, we're thrilled to have a lot of support. And one thing that was very encouraging in those first two contests in Iowa and New Hampshire was that we did do well with voters of different age brackets as well as different educational experiences and different kinds of communities, urban, rural, and suburban. And I have a message for young people too, and it's the longer you're planning to be here, the more the decisions that are about to be made will affect you personally. I am running to be the most progressive president we will have had in the last half century, but crucially, I'm also running to do it in a way that can actually start to bring America together and unify a frighteningly divided American people. And that'll continue to be my message as I reach out to voters of all generations.
So maybe a grass is greener thing, and look, older people may want to be younger and younger people want to be older, but a new poll out just a few hours ago showed 40% of voters either have some reservations or are very uncomfortable about a president under 40 years old. I can tell you, when you hit that number, it doesn't feel so great. However, you're not there yet. What would you say to them?
Well, again, I think that, look, every candidate, every person is different, but let's not equate age with wisdom. After all, we got the oldest president in American history, and how's that working out for us right now?
So if you were elected, or if you're the nominee, you get a code name, Secret Service code name.
Oh.
Do you have any kind of thoughts on what you might want that to be?
One of the many, many ways in which I'm very different from this president is I'm not great at thinking up nicknames.
That's true. He would have had several choices at the ready for this one.
I'll leave it to others to figure that out. That's a fun one to turn over in my mind.
All right, and for the young voters, I do wonder, what do you say to those young voters? Do you think to yourself, why is it that people my age or people in their 20s and they can look at you and look at your husband and they should have a lot in common? Why is it that they are sometimes wary?
Well, again, I think everybody ought to be wary right now. I mean, so much is at stake in the decision that we are about to make. We got to make sure we have a nominee who can win and defeat Donald Trump, and we got to make sure we have somebody who's going to keep the promises that they're making. And I don't blame anybody for being skeptical about my candidacy or any candidacy. But what I'll also say is that, we've worked to show, not just tell, in the course of our campaign, how we can build a life in this country that will be one of belonging, that will not just be about getting the policies right, but opening up a better era to just live in and be an American. And I want to reach out to people of every background, every age group, and also make clear that whether you support me or not, I'm running to be a president for you as well, and I will support you in your life, no matter who you supported in this election.
Well, we thank you very much for your time tonight, Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Coming up next, presidential candidate Senator Amy Klobuchar. She will join Anderson Cooper, who will be back on this stage, and we'll be back right after this.
Now on Blu-ray.
Hey, Mr. Rogers. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Won't you be mine?
That was wonderful.
A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Watch on Blu-ray and digital today.
Thank you. It's an honor to tell you that Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need.
I love you!
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Have you ever wondered what the motorcade driver drives when they're not in a motorcade? This one drives a Volkswagen Passat.
.5G will change business in America. T-Mobile has the first and only nationwide 5G network. And with it, you can shape the future. We've invested $30 billion and built our new 5G network for businesses like yours. While some 5G signals only go a few blocks, T-Mobile 5G goes for miles. No other 5G signal goes farther or is more reliable in business. Tomorrow is in your hands. Partner with T-Mobile for business today.
Knowing you're on the right path isn't always easy. That's why it's important to be prepared for anything life brings. At Fidelity, we'll help you build a clear plan for retirement, one that covers healthcare costs, taxes, and any other uncertainties, while still giving you the flexibility to make changes to your plan as often as you need. Because when you're with Fidelity, a partner who makes sure every step is clear, there's nothing to stop you from moving forward.
Breakfast combos with all-you-can-eat pancakes? This calls for all-you-can-eat silverware. Get IHOP's all-you-can-eat pancakes free with the purchase of any breakfast combo. Or just get the 2x2x2 combo with all-you-can-eat pancakes for just $4.99 Monday through Friday.
Long hair goals? Stop cutting. New L-Vive Dream Lengths with a cocktail of vitamins and fine castor oil. Strengthens hair's length and helps seal split ends to save that last inch for the hair of your dreams. New L-Vive Dream Lengths from L'Oreal. You're worth it.
There may be dark days ahead, but with God's help, we shall prevail.
A king who didn't want the throne must lead England through its darkest hour.
The Windsors Inside the Royal Dynasty, Sunday at 10 on CNN.
His story is the American story. Jim Costa, son of immigrants, his family came here for a better life and have farmed in the valley for 112 years. Jim Costa works every day to ensure access to quality health care and to stop the skyrocketing costs of prescription drugs. Jim Costa has been a leader on providing a clean and reliable water supply for the valley. And he's championed comprehensive reform that keeps families together and protects the dreamers. He's secured funding to open the Fresno Veterans Home and worked to improve access for veterans' health care, improving roads, hiring police officers, funding schools and colleges. Congressman Jim Costa, third-generation family farmer, a lifelong San Joaquin Valley resident, and our friend. Cooperative of American Physicians Independent Expenditure Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Democratic presidential town halls continue next, only on CNN.
Welcome back, live from the theater at Sahara, Las Vegas. This is a CNN Town Hall event. Good evening, I'm Anderson Cooper. Voters in Nevada are just days away from putting their stamp on the 2020 Democratic presidential primary race. Tonight, we've already heard from two candidates vying for the chance to take on President Trump, Senator Bernie Sanders and Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Now to another Democratic hopeful. Please welcome Senator Amy Klobuchar.
Very good.
Welcome.
Thanks, Anderson.
Thanks for being here.
How are you?
Good. We're going to get to audience questions in just a minute. I just want to ask you about tomorrow night on the debate stage. You've been saying that you want to see Michael Bloomberg on a debate stage. It's going to happen tomorrow night. You've said you can't beat him in terms of the money he's got, but you can on a debate stage. How do you plan to do that?
Well, you know, it's maybe a series of debates, but I actually thought he should be on the debate stage because I don't think you should just be able to buy your way to the presidency. And my issue is that a number of us, including the three of us that you saw tonight, have been going in town halls like this. We've been answering questions. We've been going to states like Nevada and actually meeting the voters and having them quiz us and ask all kinds of things and put our policies out there. And I think that's what a presidential candidate should do. So, you know, I don't mind that he has this money. That's a great thing that he made that money. But we want to make sure that we have the best candidate to lead the ticket. And I don't think that when people look at Donald Trump, they automatically say, can we get someone richer? I just don't think that's what they say. I think they say we want to have someone that we know can lead this country. And I think that's me.
All right. I want you to meet. This is Heather Goose. She's a bartender, server in Las Vegas. She was working at the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival the night of the mass shooting that killed 58 people, wounded hundreds of others. She right now is undecided. Heather, welcome.
Okay.
Hi, Senator.
Heather.
Thank you for being here. As a survivor of the October 1st, 2017 mass shooting here in Las Vegas, gun violence prevention is an incredibly important subject to me. I've seen firsthand what happens. I support the Second Amendment, but I feel like we definitely need to have better background checks and more enforcement of gun laws already on the books. How do you plan to address gun violence prevention without provoking the pro-gun versus anti-gun debate?
What a good question. And I want to, first of all, tell you, Heather, I'm so glad you're here. And I cannot imagine, I don't think any of us here can imagine what that was like for you. And you must think about those moments all the time. And what?
Live every, like my bracelet says, you went to live every day for those who died.
Exactly. And you being here, and asking that question is just pushing people to talk about this and never forget. So I'll tell you how I come to this, because you asked that question about gun owners and the interaction with the Second Amendment. So my state actually is a pretty big hunting state. And so I look at these proposals and I always say, do they hurt my Uncle Dick in the deer stand? And they don't. And I think that's why we see there was a poll last summer that showed for the majority of hunters, this was a Fox poll, and it said the majority of hunters actually supported universal background checks.
They should.
The majority of Trump owners support universal background checks. So let's think about why we don't have them. I think the first thing is that there are a lot of politicians out there that are afraid of the NRA. And I saw this firsthand after the Parkland shooting, because I've been working on a number of pieces of legislation that would make things safer. One of the bills that I've always led is a bill to close the boyfriend loophole that basically says if someone has been convicted of domestic abuse, then they cannot go out and get an assault weapon. They can't go out and buy a gun. That is pretty straightforward, and yet it is sitting right now along with the universal background check bill and a bill that does something called Close the Charleston Loophole, which was a result of that incredibly sad tragedy, that murder in the church in South Carolina, where white nationalists came in and killed a bunch of worshipers in a black church in Charleston. That bill, my bill, and the universal background check bill are all sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk right now because they passed the House of Representatives. My bill actually got some Republican support. So why aren't these things passing? Well, the NRA wields so much clout right now with some of these Republicans that we basically need to shake things up. And I sat across from Donald Trump in the White House after Parkland. And I watched, because I came to advocate for my bill, and I watched, and 9 times, I had a piece of paper and I wrote it down, he said, and I did with hash marks, 9 times that he wanted universal background checks. To the public, there's a video of this. And then what does he do? He meets with the NRA the next day and he folds. And as your president, I will not fold. I know that we can do this. We can, which would have been so helpful in the Las Vegas massacre. We could permanently put in place, just like your legislature has done in Nevada, a ban on bump stocks. We can put in the assault weapon ban, the background checks, magazine limits, all of these things. And I think the public's with us. In 2018, we elected a bunch of House members in districts that had people who were too beholden to the NRA. And they went to Washington and they helped pass these bills. So there's absolutely no reason that we can't get these done. And I'll just end with one last thing. One of my saddest days, or the saddest day I had in Washington, is when we were voting on that universal background check bill, because I had those Sandy Hook parents in my office, and I had to tell them that we didn't have the votes to get it done. And this one mom, she looked at me, she said, you know what, my kid, he had autism, and he could hardly talk. And the last day that I saw him, just like he did every day, he pointed up to a picture on the refrigerator of his school aide who was with him every day because he loved her so much. And then he went to school. And she said, hours later, I'm in that firehouse, and one by one the kids come in, and the parents that are left know we're never going to see our babies again. And she said as she was sobbing in that firehouse, she had this thought of that school aide, because she knew that that woman would never leave her son's side. And when they found them in that school, that woman had her arms around that little boy, and they were both shot to death. Those parents had the courage, just like the people in Nevada, ordinary citizens who ran into that massacre to save lives. They had the courage to do that. And there are people, including our president, that doesn't have the courage to stand up to the NRA. You have the power, Nevada, to change that and put a new leader in the White House.
This is Alpha Nash. Alpha is a high school art teacher, and she's currently undecided. Alpha, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Hi. Thank you so
Alpha.
much.
Sure.
Welcome, Senator.
Thank you.
My question is, how do you plan to protect our under 18 population who are illegal immigrants who came to this country as young children? Do you have a plan on helping to fast track them into citizenship? And if so, what are the steps to make this happen?
Sure. Thank you. And thank you for being a teacher.
Yes, thank you.
My mom actually taught second grade until she was 70 years old.
Oh, wow.
Hopefully you can retire sooner than that. But,
we'll see.
But I can tell you love your kids, even beyond the work that you do in the classroom. So as we know, what she's talking about here are dreamers. And there are so many young people here who only know one country or only know one state. And I have been taking this on for a while. I kept trying to think about how I can get people to understand what this is. And I finally found this few years ago, a 99-year-old dreamer. He had been brought over when he was 5 years old. He didn't know it. He thought he had been born in our country. And I see one of our Navy veterans out there with a hat. He signed up to serve in World War II. And when he signed up to serve, that was when he found out that he was a dreamer, that he had not been born in our country, and so then you couldn't serve. So what they did back then, get this, is they would say, okay, just come and live in Canada for one day. Stay overnight in Canada, the Army did this, and then you can come back and you're a citizen, because they needed people to serve. This is during World War II. And he said, I stayed in a hotel, and I came back, and I was a citizen. And then he served under General MacArthur. He served bravely. He came back to Minnesota. He got married. They had a son. That son served in the Vietnam War. And I finally thought, okay, I brought him to stand in front of the World War II Memorial when he was now at this point over 100 years old with 2 dreamers from the suburbs of my state who wanted to serve in the Air Force but couldn't under our current rules. And there's no way under the current rules they could just go to Canada for a day. So I wanted to make that point. And the answer, of course, is comprehensive immigration reform, which would help not only dreamers with a fast track to citizenship, but also a track to citizenship for many others. That bill passed the U.S. Senate in 2013. I was part of the Judiciary Committee, worked on that bill. I know as president I can get things done. I can get it done in the first year. I don't think we can wait because this president, we actually worked out an agreement on dreamers with Republicans in the Senate, and we were gut punched by the Trump administration. This is just another reason for a change. Think about it, immigrants. 70 of our Fortune 500 companies are headed up by people from other countries. 25% of our US Nobel laureates were born in other countries. Immigrants don't diminish America, they are America.
Let me just follow up with you. You've been in the Senate for 10 years. You've seen a lot of people try this and fail. In 2007, it didn't work under George Bush. Obviously, under Obama, 2013. Why would it be different with you as president?
I think the need has become clearer and clearer, and we were so close in 2013. George Bush worked valiantly, actually, to try to get that done. And back then, it was right-wing talk radio defeated it. Then you go to 2013, and President Obama had come in the middle of the downturn. He tried it in his second term, and he worked really hard as well. A number of those senators that voted for it, Republicans, are still there today. And that bill back in 2013 got stopped. I think it ended up in John Boehner's freezer when he was Speaker of the House next to the frozen peas. And the point of it is Nancy Pelosi is now the Speaker. I believe that if I am our candidate for president, we're going to be able to win big and make sure we keep the House and win in these Senate districts like in Arizona, right, and in Colorado, and make a change. But there are Republicans in the Senate that will still vote for comprehensive immigration reform, and you just need to do it in your first year. I have made that very clear. That's what I will do, and I think we can get it done. And one other argument I'd make for people, that when you're talking to your friends and neighbors, that people don't always think about this, it brings the deficit down. This was a nonpartisan budget office assessment by $158 billion in 10 years. Comprehensive immigration, why? Why is that? Because people come out of the shadows and they start paying taxes. The AFL-CIO supported the bill because wages will go up. The private sector, of course, the Chamber of Commerce supported the comprehensive immigration bill. So there's a lot of good arguments for it that bring in people of different backgrounds.
I want to ask you about something that happened recently. You were asked to give the name of the president of Mexico. You couldn't at the time. Mayor Buttigieg did know the name, and he says it helps his argument that Washington experience isn't necessary to be president. Does it?
Oh my. Okay, well, first of all, I would like to give my greetings to President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, the president of Mexico. When that happened, for what it's worth, I had been in the Senate all day. We had 6 votes, and including a resolution to be a check on the president so he doesn't go pell-mell into war with Iran. And I got on a plane and got there, I think, at midnight my time, and had a fast interview, and then did 2 forums after that. I think ending at about 2 or 3 in the morning. So, you know, such is life. And I would say to the mayor, this isn't like a game of Jeopardy. This is about, to me, experience, and I have so much respect for him and his experience, but my experience is different. I have been in the Senate. I have passed over 100 bills as the lead Democrat. I think that matters. And most importantly, I have been able to win in rural and suburban districts. I have been able to win with independents and Republicans, not once, not twice, but 3 times, and bring people with me. I think that's really important right now, that we build this coalition, that we not shut people out. And I know he agrees with me on that, but I am the one that actually has the receipts of anyone that you'll see on the debate stage tomorrow night that's done it. So it's just a different experience that I bring to this and to the job. And as far as Mexico in general, I think I was the first one on the stage, yes, who gave my support to the United States Mexican-Canadian trade agreement, which I think got much better because of the hard work of people like my friend Sherrod Brown in terms of some labor provisions, and earned the support of the president of the AFL-CIO, Richard Trumka. I think that implementing that is going to be the job of the new president, making sure that those provisions are strong and that we enforce the trade agreement to help our workers. And I also think having a president, unlike this president, who's going to reach out to our allies immediately. In my first 100 days, I will be meeting with the president of Mexico, the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, as well as so many of our allies around the world. I think that has to immediately happen with a new president.
I want to introduce you to Natalie Galvin. She's a retired registered nurse from Henderson. She's supporting you. Natalie, welcome.
Hi, Natalie.
Good evening.
I was just in Henderson.
Oh, good evening, Senator. As the first woman president, what will be the first thing you will do for the women in this country pertaining to equality?
Okay, well, very good. Well, I think there's a lot we should do, but I think actually passing the ERA would be a nice thing to do. I don't know if it'll be the first thing that I get done, but it's been waiting for a while. I also think that economic issues for women and men are key. Getting an increase to the minimum wage, the federal minimum wage that has not happened for literally nearly a decade, would be really important for a lot of women workers. Getting childcare, universal childcare, would be so key for so many workers. Making sure that we keep strong a women's right to choose would be so good when we have a president that is trying to literally tear apart women's right to reproductive freedom. There is so much we can do, but I think one of the amazing things about being the first woman president would be to basically have every little girl in America and really around the world think anything and everything is possible. And you think about, I was just with some of the culinary workers, the housekeepers today. I just left there, a big group of women, and a number of them, because they had just gotten off work, had their little kids, girls and boys, on their laps. And you look at those kids and you think they could grow up in a different world where maybe they won't even remember when Donald Trump was president.
If I could just follow up briefly, other countries have had women presidents before. What do you think it says about our country that we haven't?
You know, actually Hillary Clinton did get the most votes. Let us remember that. So I think that, you know, I think people were ready for it. I think it is, I've thought about this a lot because actually in my races, I was the first woman in both jobs I had, as the county attorney and then as the woman senator from my state. And I didn't really talk about it much back then because women had tried to run for the US Senate in my state twice, and they were both really qualified, and they didn't make it. And there had been a lot of emphasis on put the first woman in. And so when I ran, I made very clear I was running on my merits, that I was honored to be, would be honored to be the first woman senator, but that wasn't enough of a reason that I had to show I had the experience and I had to have a plan of what I wanted to get done. And I made that really clear throughout the campaign. And I think that's really important in this race as well. I know it would be cool to be the first woman president, believe me. And I think a lot of women out there know exactly what I'm talking about. But I think that the story that we tell and the campaign that we run have to be more than about that. It's got to be about people's dreams. It's got to be about the fact that we have a president that can't seem to put himself into the shoes of other people. I was saying this the other day in the last debate, that he literally seems to lack empathy. Because if he had empathy, he wouldn't be talking about immigrants the way he did. If he had empathy, he wouldn't be littling people like my friend who I miss so much, John McCain. If he had empathy, he would be working on things like childcare. And so as I've made it so clear, my pitch to the people of this state and across the country is that if you are having trouble deciding between filling your refrigerator with food or your insulin prescription, I know you and I'll fight for you. And if you can't figure out if you're going to pay for childcare for your kids or long-term care for your parents, which I'm dealing with right now for my dad, I know you and I'll fight for you. And if you can't figure out how to make your paycheck stretch to pay your mortgage or your rent, I know you and I'll fight for you. And there is such a big difference between me and Donald Trump. One of them is I loved when the president went after Michael Bloomberg and the president said that Michael Bloomberg was 5'4", and Michael Bloomberg's like, no, I'm not, I'm taller than that. I'm the only one that has a claim to be 5'4". I want to be very clear. But, you know, he got $413 million over the course of his life from his dad. That's great. My grandpa was an iron ore miner. My dad was a newspaper man. My mom was a teacher. And my grandpa saved money in a coffee can in the basement to send my dad to a 2-year community college. That's my family's trust. And you cannot fit $413 million in a coffee can. And I figure if someone gives you opportunity, whether it's a parent or a grandparent, or whether it is someone you work with or a teacher, you do not go into the world with a sense of entitlement. You go into the world with a sense of obligation to lift people up instead of shoving them down.
We're going to be right back with Senator Amy Klobuchar right after that.
Hello. I saw you move in and I wanted to welcome you to the neighborhood with some homemade biscuits.
Oh, that's so nice.
And a little tip, Geico could help you save on homeowners insurance.
Oh.
Cookies?
Biscuits.
Is there a little nutmeg in there?
Oh, it's my mum's secret recipe.
You can tell me.
It's a secret.
Is it cinnamon?
It's my mum's secret recipe.
Call Geico and see how easy saving on homeowners and condo insurance can be.
I'll come back for the plate.
I am totally blind. And Non-24 can make me show up too early or too late, or make me feel like I'm not really there. Talk to your doctor and call 844-234-2424.
5G will change business in America. T-Mobile has the first and only nationwide 5G network. And with it, you can shape the future. We've invested $30 billion and built our new 5G network for businesses like yours. While some 5G signals only go a few blocks, T-Mobile 5G goes for miles. No other 5G signal goes farther or is more reliable in business. Tomorrow is in your hands. Partner with T-Mobile for business today.
We got a Subaru to give him some adventure. To reconnect and be together. And once we did that, we realized his greatest adventure is just beginning.
Welcome to the most adventurous Outback ever. The all-new Subaru Outback. Go where love takes you.
I'm Mariceli, and I am a real Premier Protein fan. The taste of Premier Protein helps me not feel deprived from sweets. I love it.
With 30 grams of protein, 160 calories, and just 1 gram of sugar. Premier Protein. Too good to be good.
2, 3, 5.
Saturday, the 2020 presidential race heads to Nevada. How will the first Western caucuses shake up the race? CNN takes you inside the results like no one else. The Nevada caucuses. Special live coverage starts Saturday at 2 Eastern on CNN.
Some say good things come to those who wait. At QVC, we say better things come now. Enjoy now. Pay over time. 0% interest with Easy Pay. The best news, you can use it every day on everything. Yes, everything. All the great brands you love and new products you'll discover. So why wait? It's Easy Pay now every day on everything. Shop QVC and QVC.com.
Esmeralda Soria is running against Jim Costa for Congress. But here's what she said a year ago.
Congressman Jim Costa delivered $16 million to help us open Fulton Street. Jim Costa has dedicated his career to delivering for the Valley. Jim Costa has always put working families first. I'm Fresno City Council President Esmeralda Soria, and I support Jim Costa for Congress.
I'm Jim Costa, and I approve this message.
The Windsors, Inside the Royal Dynasty, Sundays at 10 on CNN.
And welcome back. We're live from Sahara, Las Vegas for a Democratic presidential town hall with Senator Amy Klobuchar. Let's get back to our questions. This is Pam Whitfield Jacobson, a dietitian from Las Vegas. She's currently undecided. Pam?
Question, Senator. We love how even and reasonable you are, but how would you compete with the bombast of Trump? Would you be lost in the shuffle?
I don't think so, no. If anyone has seen me on the debate stage, I don't think so, no. I think that actually having someone very different than he is, as I just described my background, I think that's really important. And I think the other thing is to have an optimistic economic agenda that you keep pushing. That's going to be important. People want to have something to vote for and someone to vote for, and not just someone to vote against. And then I think the other piece of it is how you, when you put yourself, I was just talking about before the break, putting yourself in the shoes of other people. You know, not everyone agrees with everything that's said on the Democratic debate stage. I don't agree with everything that's said there. And there are a lot of people out there who are independents or moderate Republicans or people who maybe stayed home in 2016 who see this as a patriotism check on this president. You know, they don't like that we have a president that stood next to a ruthless dictator and Vladimir Putin, and when asked about Russian interference in the election, made a joke about it. Think about it, hundreds of thousands of Americans have lost their lives on the battlefield, standing up for democracy. That's what World War II was about. 4 little girls at the height of the civil rights movement lost their life because they were innocents, trying to be part of that democracy, and other people were trying to shove them out of that democracy. So I think it's important, or they think of it as a decency check. I have met so many people that see it in those eyes, and you have others that feel like there have been promises that haven't been kept to them, that, you know, he keeps talking about the economy. Well, look at their prescription drug prices, or what's he done when it comes to child care, or what he's done when it comes to rural broadband in northern Nevada or the like. So I think you have a lot of things that people are thinking. Then the last thing, I think it's important to take him on and be aggressive, of course, but I also think you've got to point out how absurd he is at times, right? You do, and you have to be nimble. You have to be nimble in the moment to be able to do that. So when I announced my candidacy in the middle of that blizzard, and he made fun of me for talking about climate change in a blizzard, and called me Snow Woman, which I kind of liked, actually. I sent out a tweet and said, the science is on my side, Donald Trump, when it comes to climate change, and I'd like to see how your hair would fare in a blizzard. Or like you look at the absurdity of when other people, when things go wrong for them and they can't afford stuff, they've got to get out a loan, or they've got to work extra hours, or find another different job, or their spouse has to go work. With him, when anything goes wrong, what does he do? He blames other people. That's what he does. He blames other people. Picture him going by that helicopter, it's whirring, and he's like yelling about stuff. He blames Barack Obama. He loves blaming Barack Obama. He does that all the time. The president who had so much dignity, right? I'm talking about President Obama. He blames the generals he commands. He's done that. He blames the Federal Reserve head that he appointed. He blames the entire kingdom of Denmark. Who does that? He does that. I kept saying that throughout New Hampshire, and I had this cult of Danish people following me that would wave flags. And then my favorite one recently is that he blamed the Prime Minister of Canada for cutting him out of the Canadian version of Home Alone 2. Like, who does that? So I think, you have to be able, and I am not at one moment making light of what he has done to so many people, how immigrants feel in this society, how people of color feel when he says there are two sides after Charlottesville. When one side is the Ku Klux Klan, there is only one side, and that's the American side. But when we take this guy on, we have got to remember what he does and how he does it, and have someone that's able to take him on in his own arena.
I want you to meet Brandon Cromer. He's a law student at UNLV. Okay. He's currently undecided. Brandon?
Okay, Brandon, thank you, and congratulations for being a law student.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for being here. Mm-hmm. Currently, there is a movement to push for marijuana legalization. As you may know, men and women of color were disproportionately prosecuted for small marijuana possession. If marijuana is legalized, would you consider a pardon or encourage states to seal or expunge those records?
Yes, I would. By the way, I'm well aware of what this state has done in Nevada, where you legalized marijuana, and where you actually put in place, I think, medical marijuana. And you did that when you made some changes to the legislature and a new governor and the like. And so I think it's really important to look at it as a way of making changes to our drug policy and doing the right thing. And I think there's other things that we should be doing as well. We just passed the First Step Act, which is a bipartisan effort in the Congress that reduced the federal sentences for nonviolent offenders, some of them way too long. And I actually was a co-sponsor of that bill. And now I think we need to have the Second Step Act, which is to look at the fact that 90% of people incarcerated are in state and local jails. And when you look at some of these nonviolent offenders, you see that these sentences are too long, and you make changes. So I think there's still so much more work that needs to be done when it comes to criminal justice reform. So thank you.
I want to just follow up on that. I want to ask you about your a study from your first year as a prosecutor. Mm-hmm. This was a study from the Council on Crime and Justice. It found that black men ages 18 to 30 in Hennepin County were 15 times more likely to be arrested for narcotics offenses than white men, 12 times more likely to be arrested for serious violent crimes, 5 times more likely for serious property crimes. Were you aware of those disparities at the time?
I think anyone that's worked in the criminal justice system knows there's institutional racism. And over the years, I think we've seen just how devastating that is. And when I was there, I worked hard on, for instance, doing more when it came to white-collar crime, doing more with drug courts. And while there were still disparities in our system, like there were any, we at least managed in those 8 years to reduce the African American incarceration rate by 12%. And, but there's still more to be done. We just talked about sentencing reform. I think there needs to be more done when it comes to grand jury reform. When I was there, I worked on eyewitness identification and making sure that when police showed witnesses pictures, that they showed them one at a time instead of all at once, because it's been proven there's mostly racially involved misidentifications when you do it that way. Also making sure the officer showing the picture doesn't know who it is. That can make a big difference. Using everything from DNA reviews to making sure that both our police departments and our prosecutors' offices are diverse makes a big difference. And I just think we have to come to grips with the fact that while we must keep our community safe, you can do that at the same time you get at the institutional racism that we have in the criminal justice system.
This is Paula Zinko. She's a maintenance dispatcher from Las Vegas. She's an undecided caucus goer. Paula?
Good evening,
Hi,
Senator.
Paula.
As a Jewish woman, I would like to know, what do you plan on doing to improve the anti-Semitic attitude that has been on the rise in this country?
Well, thank you. And I think we know, if you didn't know that it was going on, when you look at what just happened in New York City, at the rabbi's home, where this stabbing occurred. Can you imagine at a time that was supposed to be joyful, of a holiday, and you have this madman, anti-Semitic, coming in and stabbing people in the rabbi's home. We've seen that time and time again in this country. And I actually go back to my days that I mentioned when I was the head county attorney in our biggest county. And I took on hate crimes in a big way then. And it was everything from a African-American kid, a guy literally told people, I'm gonna go and shoot a black kid on Martin Luther King Day. And he did it. It was just a miracle that this young man wasn't killed. But we went after that guy, of course, for attempted murder. Or a manager at a floor manager at a manufacturing floor who literally hit an employee over the head with a 2x4 for speaking Spanish. That case happened. Since I've been in the Senate, we had a mosque that was bombed in Minneapolis, by a suburb of Minneapolis, by white nationalists. And that's why when you look at this, we have seen this increase in hate crimes in this country. Many of them involving synagogues, like we saw at the Tree of Life Synagogue, and many involving other religious centers. So the first thing you do is you make sure you have an attorney general in place that is going to make this a priority. That's number one. Number two, you work with local law enforcement and you have major coordination with local law enforcement, local DAs, state attorney generals, because so much of the work on this is done on the front end. You look at how you can look for the signs, right? Some of this is everything from schools to social media, and by the way, having enough counselors and other people in the schools to identify this, which, as you know, as we talked about gun violence, is not just about mass shootings, it's also about everyday violence and what we can see. And then the third thing is education and making sure that people understand this right to worship and how fundamental it is. One of the more endearing stories that I heard from our Jewish community in Minnesota was that they had a threat phoned into their community center, and everyone had to leave. It wasn't just people who were there for meetings, it was people, little kids in swimming pools and seniors that were there. And they were all, it was a cold day, and they had to wander outside. And when they came in and they checked their messages, the first message, and we'd worked hard on this in our community, saying, do you need a meeting space? was from the Islamic Center of Minnesota. And so those kinds of stories and making sure that people know that kind of interfaith alliances that still exist and are so strong, and having a president that wants to talk about it, I think that makes a big difference too. It's knowing how you enforce the laws. It's putting people in place that will do it. But it is also having the heart to actually make it a priority.
I want you to meet Tommy Sheehan. He's from State Line, Nevada. He's the founder and CEO of a software company. He's currently undecided. Tommy, welcome.
Hi, Tommy.
Hi, Senator Klobuchar. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Vladimir Putin and his regime have attacked Western democracies throughout the world with fake information, Facebook, Instagram accounts, and attacked our election in 2016. Putin seems to have a disproportional influence over Trump and several actors in Washington. What are your views on regime change in Moscow?
Okay, so I think the way that you get people in other countries to want to believe in actually having a democracy is by having strong leaders in your own democracies. I will start with that, that respect democracies so they have something to look to. When you look at what happened with the fall of the Iron Curtain and other moments in history, a lot of people in those countries who were desperate for examples of beacons of democracy would look to our own country. So making sure that our democracy is working and that we have a president that actually believes in democracy is key. I think the second thing is to be very firm in our relationships with Vladimir Putin. We know that this isn't just about interfering in our election. We know that under his regime, that they have done things like poisoned dissidents, like went after and killed journalists, like brought down planes, like invading Ukraine, which I'll never forget being there with the Ukrainians on the front line on New Year's Eve with my friend John McCain, one of the last trips that he took. Now, why did he take that trip? Right after Donald Trump was elected. He took me and Senator Graham on this trip to Lithuania and Latvia and Estonia and Georgia and, of course, Ukraine, because he wanted to make that point loud and clear to our allies that we stood with them against Russian aggression and that America stood with them. And literally every country we went to, the leader of that country would be on one podium and the three of us would be on the other podium. So I learned a lot with John McCain, and I learned the importance of those things. And one last thing I would add as we go into this election and we think about what we can do here at home to stand up for our own elections, because you brought up some of the things that they had done in our election. And by the way, the same thing in other countries. I still remember that trip. Estonia, they had moved a statue of a Russian fighter away from a public square into another location in a cemetery, and so they got all their internet shut down. You know everything. You're like, and they like people would have to like try to go onto a hill to get service. And another country that we were in, they had allowed Ukrainian dissidents who in exile, they had allowed them to come to a celebration in their country, and then those people got their computers hacked into. This is a long, long history. Or one of the stories I heard from one of the Scandinavian prime ministers, and she said that they were mad at their country, Russia, so they started running things on Russian TV that would get into their countries that said that they had run out of fruits and vegetables, and then all these well-meaning Russians would cross over to see their friends with carrots and apples because it just is endless. And so for our country's sake, what we should do, I think we never thought this would happen to us, but it did. We have to, one, safeguard our democracies. I lead the bill for backup paper ballots. We still have a number of states that don't have backup paper ballots, and we need those. And then secondly, when it comes to social media, and I make a plea out there to help. This is a bill that actually Senator Graham and I now have that says to the social media companies, you've got to follow the same rules for political ads that TV and radio and newspapers do, which is that you have to say who paid for things, right, on the ads, and then you have to keep those ads in an archive so people know what they are, so other campaigns can check them out. And if you think this doesn't matter, I use an example of an image. This wasn't a paid ad, but an image that went out to African-American Facebook pages in the 2016 election. And we had it and displayed it in the Judiciary Committee. It was an innocent woman, innocent African-American woman from Chicago. They put her face on an image with a fake Hillary logo, and it said, "Why wait in line to vote?" This is in 2016. You can text your vote to 86153, made up some number. Think about that. They were suppressing the vote, whoever did that, by putting those images up. They were trying to get people not to go to the voting booths because they would think they could just text their vote in. To me, that's a crime. But that is what we are talking about when we talk about social media. So that is why the name of the bill is the Honest Ads Act. Mitch McConnell won't let it come forward. The citizens of this country should demand it.
I'm wondering, as president, in your first phone call with Vladimir Putin, what would you say to him?
I would say hello. I would say, I would first of all make very clear that I will stand up for our democracy and stand up for human rights and go through exactly everything I think that has not been good. And then I would say we should start talking about negotiating the nuclear agreements that we have for nuclear arms with Russia. One of them, unfortunately, Donald Trump has already gotten us out of, which has not made the world safer. The other one is called the New START Treaty, and it's going to end during a new president's term, and I would immediately start negotiating things. I think you can do two things at once, and the most important thing that we have to do is stand with our allies when it comes to Vladimir Putin.
Also, I assume you'd allow your national security staff to listen in to the call.
Yes, I would allow my national security staff to listen into the call. That is correct, Anderson.
Stay there. We have more questions for Senator Klobuchar right after this.
As I was walking a ribbon of highway, I saw above me an endless skyway. I saw below me,
beyond all maps, where no one's been.
This land was made for you and me.
There is a place we could be free.
Rated PG. It's a familiar story. Allergies ruining your sleep and next day too. Taking Zysol at night relieves allergies while you sleep, so you wake refreshed. Plus, it works faster than Claritin, and on first dose provides the same relief as Zyrtec at nearly half the size. Be wise all. Take Zysol at night.
I love the new MyWW program because it's tailored to you. Take the personal assessment and get matched with a proven weight loss plan. Find out which customized plan can make losing weight easier for you.
MyWW. Join today with the WW Triple Play.
This is Charlie not coughing because he took Delsum 12-hour. And this is Charlie still not coughing while trying his hardest not to wake Zeus. Delsum 12-hour. Nothing lasts longer for powerful cough relief.
This is my first trip to the DR, and so far it's fantastic. The people, absolutely wonderful.
We want to go to the town and actually get to know the people and the culture.
We get a little bit of everything. The spa, the nightlife, the restaurants, the beach, everything has just been so amazing.
Loving being out on the water and sailing, and everything is excellent.
You can't describe this to anybody. You have to be here to see it.
Meet the Ninja Foodie Pressure Cooker with Tender Crisp technology. The best of pressure cooking and air frying are now in one pot. And only the Ninja Foodie has Tender Crisp technology, so you can cook foods that are crispy on the outside and juicy on the inside. You may never need another appliance ever again. The Ninja Foodie Pressure Cooker, the pressure cooker that crisps.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service.
The Windsors, Inside the Royal Dynasty, Sundays at 10 on CNN.
Your sweetest dreams are coming true at Chancey Gold with our $900,000 Candy Cash giveaway. Earn your chance to find the golden ticket and play the Candy Cash game where you could win $500,000.
I'm a small business owner, the first in my family to graduate from college. Devin Nunes is a career politician who has taken millions from special interests. They get big tax breaks, we get cuts to our health care. I'm rejecting all corporate PAC money, so there's never a question about who I work for. The billionaires and political insiders want to keep the deck stacked in their favor. They're with Devin Nunes. I'm Phil Arbaio, and I approve this message to ask you to stand with me.
Don't miss Chancey Gold's $900,000 Candy Cash giveaway grand finale on Saturday, February 29th, where you could walk away with a guaranteed $50,000 at the 10 p.m. drawing, only at Chancey Gold Resort and Casino.
I'm Blake Essig in Hong Kong, and this is CNN.
Closed captioning brought to you by Flex Seal family of products.
Flex Seal. Always have a can of Flex Seal.
This stuff is awesome.
Best stuff ever got.
Imagine everything you could do with the Flex Seal family of products.
And welcome back. We are live in Las Vegas with Senator Amy Klobuchar. I want to bring in Reverend James Costco. He's a pastor from Reno. He's currently undecided. Reverend, welcome.
Okay. Hi, Reverend.
Good afternoon. And Senator Klobuchar, I want to welcome you back to Nevada.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here.
Yes, I was just in Reno. It was great.
Yes. I have a three-part question.
Oh, I better stand up.
Yes.
Okay.
The good news is they are kind of related.
Okay. Whew.
As president, first of all, what joy can you bring back to this country? And secondly, what will you do to make each of us proud to be an American? And lastly, how will you reestablish our dignity and standing in the world community?
Okay. All right, so the joy I will bring is the joy of loving people. And I really think that that kind of zest for enjoying being with people, even if you don't agree with everything they say, seems to be missing right now with this president. And you feel it when you want to have a president. I remember the old days as you look about being proud, your second part, being proud to be an American. You remember, I do, when my parents would put the TV on because the president was giving an address. And it might not be a president that they had voted for or that they even terribly liked, but they felt it was important to watch the president because they wanted to teach that to me, but they also wanted to know what the president was saying because they wanted to, as a citizen, understand that so that they could have discussions with people and the like. And I think we've lost that. Right now. I think people are afraid when they see him at a rally, they need to mute the volume because they don't know what he's going to say. There are teachers that they want to teach in a neutral way about, and they don't know because the things that he says and does isn't what they're teaching the kids at school. I just think we need to bring that sense of decency back. And I know it's going to be boring when I don't send out a mean tweet at 5 in the morning. I know that, okay? I know that, and it's going to be really boring for the media. They're going to be like, oh, we got to find something else. Because I just think that has become such a negative thing. At the beginning, people were shocked, and he always finds ways to distract us every single day. And then that makes it harder, right, to work on these long-term challenges, some of which we talked about, and things like bringing healthcare premiums down and doing something about climate change and all of those things. It makes it harder to do because those are really hard things to work on, because you've got to meet with people and you've got to draft a bill and do all these things, and he's just out there tweeting all the time. So I think that's the first thing. And then as far as our standing in the world, so I did a speech to the Council on Foreign Relations. You can see it on our website at amyklobuchar.com. Where you can also help us out. The speech was about foreign relations and the 5 R's that I would bring to foreign policy. It's not reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's first of all, renewing American leadership in the world. It is secondly, don't worry, I won't go through them that long. The second one is to repair our relationships with our allies, something we've talked about tonight. The third one is to renegotiate back into international agreements. I mentioned the Russian nuclear arms agreements, but also the Iranian nuclear agreement, which this president got us out of, which I didn't think was the right thing. And the fourth thing would be to respond appropriately when things come up around the world, instead of doing tweets in the bathrobe at 5 in the morning. And then the fifth thing is to reassert American values around the world. And it really comes down to 1 R, and that would be to renew sanity, return to sanity in our foreign policy.
Senator Amy Klobuchar, the CNN Democratic Presidential Town Hall live from Las Vegas continues this Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, with former Vice President Joe Biden, Senator Elizabeth Warren. Stay tuned for CNN Tonight, coming up next.
I am totally blind. And Non-24 can make me show up too early or too late, or make me feel like I'm not really there. Talk to your doctor and call 844-234-2424.
We're Oscar Mayer Deli Fresh, and you may know us from your very first sandwich. Your mammoth masterpiece, and whatever this was. Oscar Mayer is found in more fridges than anyone else because it's the taste you count on. Make every sandwich count.
The best ingredients are easy to explain. Like food that's grown from soil and rain. Artichokes and egg yolks have nothing to hide. Unlike azodicarbonamide, our domain is organic romaine, ancient grains, chunky or plain, fuel for the brain, absolutely anything but mundane. We only sell food we know you'll adore. So icky products are banned from our store. Saying no to that stuff is more than a goal, because that's what makes us whole.
When it comes to autism, finding the right words can be tough. Finding understanding doesn't have to be.
Joanne, I love you. Love you too.
Together, we can create a kinder, more inclusive world for the millions of people on the autism spectrum. Go to autismspeaks.org.
It's time for the ultimate Sleep Number event on the Sleep Number 360 smart bed.
Can it help keep me asleep?
Absolutely. It senses your movements and automatically adjusts to keep you both comfortable. It's the final days to save 50% on the Sleep Number 360 limited edition smart bed, plus 0% interest for 24 months and Sunday.
We wanted to come to a beautiful spot and enjoy ourselves. Yes. We're here in Punta Cana,
Dominican Republic.
Enjoying my birthday. Yes. This is beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was talking to a best friend, and she said, I want to come there and go sometime. And I said, you need to go. It will change you. It'll change your soul.
Completely lived up to the expectations and then some. We've had a great time our entire time here.
Of course, we're going to come back. We'll see you later. All right.
I gotta say, I need a break. And I've been dreaming about it all day. I get it all, I get it my way. Everybody say, oh my.
So, you want to be the leader of the free world? Just how far will you go to get what you want? Will you turn friends into enemies? Will you break your own rules? The race for the White House is on.
His story is the American story. Jim Costa, son of immigrants, his family came here for a better life and have farmed in the valley for 112 years. Jim Costa works every day to ensure access to quality health care and to stop the skyrocketing costs of prescription drugs. Jim Costa has been a leader on providing a clean and reliable water supply for the valley. And he's championed comprehensive reform that keeps families together and protects the dreamers. He's secured funding to open the Fresno Veterans Home and worked to improve access for veterans' health care, improving roads, hiring police officers, funding schools and colleges. Congressman Jim Costa, third-generation family farmer, a lifelong San Joaquin Valley resident, and our friend. Cooperative of American Physicians Independent Expenditure Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
The Windsors, Inside the Royal Dynasty, Sundays at 10 on CNN.
Hello, everyone. You have been watching CNN's Town Halls live from Las Vegas. Bernie Sanders, Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, each trying to make their case to voters tonight. Thursday night, it is Joe Biden at 8 Eastern, followed by Elizabeth Warren. But in less than 24 hours, 6 Democrats vying to run against the president will hit the debate stage in Vegas with the clock ticking to the all-important Nevada caucuses, and that is on Saturday. But let's jump right into our expert analysis of what you heard tonight. So here to discuss is CNN political director, Mr. David Chalian, and Ron Brownstein, the senior editor at The Atlantic. So good to have you on. Fascinating to watch all of this. They got a lot in tonight. David, I'm going to start with you. We heard from Bernie Sanders, we heard from Pete Buttigieg, we heard from Amy Klobuchar. Tell me, what stood out to you?
Well, one thing that was consistent across all 3 town halls, Don, was Michael Bloomberg, and they all were making the point that they don't feel that somebody should be able to buy their way to the nomination or the presidency. Now, of course, they're not in a position to do that, although Bernie Sanders raises a ton of money. So it's a critique you may expect to hear. It's one they've been making on the campaign trail, but it's one they certainly brought to their town halls. And the other notable moments, I would say, you know, Bernie Sanders saying you've got what you're getting on medical records. He doesn't plan on releasing anything more, and not willing to sort of wear the mantle of frontrunner in this race. He was a little resistant to that label. And then in that Buttigieg town hall, Don, that moment where he clearly took on the president over hush money to a porn star, not something you normally hear Pete Buttigieg say on the trail, but clearly when asked about what Rush Limbaugh had said about his being gay, and then the president saying he shouldn't apologize for it, Buttigieg came loaded for bear on that.
Let's listen to that, David, and then we'll discuss it a little bit more. Here it is.
The idea of the likes of Rush Limbaugh or Donald Trump lecturing anybody on family values, I mean, I'm sorry, but one thing about my marriage is it's never involved me having to send hush money to a porn star after cheating on my spouse.
I mean, listen, he spoke in very real terms, David, about this. Wasn't judging people who might be new to coming on board with the idea of a gay president.
Yeah, and listen, this is red meat for his supporters, for the Democratic base in general. He's not afraid of putting anyone off to his candidacy because of this. And by the way, it is also a message that has some resonance in sort of the suburban independent voter world that helped Democrats win the House. The very voters that may have voted for Donald Trump but have drifted away from him in the presidency, the very argument that Pete Buttigieg makes as to why he can cobble some of that coalition back together for the Democrats.
David, it reminds me of something that was going around the internet this weekend that people were sharing. A question someone said, how will I explain a gay president kissing his husband to my kids? And the answer is, I don't know, Karen, probably the same way you did the pee grabbing. That's for Ron.
That certainly made the point. Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, I mean, you know, it's interesting. Those remarks obviously were probably the most memorable single soundbite of the night, but they are an extension of what he does in his stump speech. Because, I mean, one of the challenges all the Democrats are facing, part of the audition they're going through, is voters are trying to envision them on the stage against Donald Trump if there are debates this fall, which is certainly not guaranteed. And, you know, as a 38-year-old mayor of a small city, he has that challenge. And one of the things he does in his stump speech, he says, look, I can talk to him, I can talk about family values, you know, in my life. I can talk about military service in my life. And this, I thought, was, you know, a moment in which Democratic voters who are uncertain about someone with his resume going against Trump could very easily picture him being effective in that moment in a debate this fall. Can I just one other point, Don, real quick to what David was saying before? It's kind of striking. It's kind of striking that all three focus so much fire on Bloomberg, which understandable. He's moved up a lot. They haven't had a chance to lay a glove on him. He's been playing tennis without a net, as I like to say, putting all this money on television. But the fact is,
let me put the polls up as you're talking about that, okay?
Yeah.
And just let me read this, and then I'll let you finish.
Right.
This is an NBC Wall Street Journal poll, puts him at 27%, talking about Sanders. Biden second at 15%. The Marist poll showing Sanders at 31%, and a surging Michael Bloomberg behind him at 19%. Go ahead, please, Ron.
But the point is that Bernie Sanders is the one at 31 in that Marist poll. He crossed 30 in a California poll today. There's several polls out showing him now leading among Latinos nationwide. And I think this gave us a pretty good indication that the other candidates are probably going to be focused more on Bloomberg than on Sanders tomorrow night. It's a continuation of what we've seen through the whole race. They have chosen most of them not to truly directly engage with him out of a belief that he's still unlikely to be able to put together a coalition to win. But his numbers are going up. He had a really good day in polling across a lot of polls today. And I think it was just striking that Buttigieg and Klobuchar, both moderates who have criticized Sanders on other occasions, really were so light on that front tonight, and maybe a preview of what we're going to see tomorrow with Bloomberg more in the line of fire than the guy who's now the clear national leader in all of these polls.
Well, it's always been interesting, but it's getting even more interesting, fascinating to watch tonight and tomorrow. Probably even more so. Thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate your analysis. We have some breaking news tonight that we need to tell you about. It's on the Attorney General. A source telling CNN that Bill Barr has considered resigning over the president's interference in the DOJ. Mainly, they're talking about his tweets, which sounds like an escalation after his big interview just last week, saying that he won't be bullied by this president. So is he sending another message to the president, who today says this?
Yeah, I do make his job harder. I do agree with that. I think that's true.
Now, we've got more on that ahead, a lot more on that ahead. But I want to turn to the president's wave of pardons today and commutations. This president has been on a tear ever since his impeachment victory, which was not even 2 weeks ago. He's been settling scores, he's been firing his perceived enemies, and today doling out pardons and commuting the sentences of 11 convicted criminals, including the former governor of Illinois, Rod Blagojevich, who was released from prison tonight.
We have commuted the sentence of Rod Blagojevich. He served 8 years in jail. It's a long time, and I watched his wife on television. I don't know him very well. I met him a couple of times. He was on for a short while of The Apprentice years ago.
He served 8 years, as he just said, but he's supposed to serve 14 years. That was his sentence on corruption charges, including attempting to sell the Senate seat left open when, wait for it, Barack Obama was elected president. Blagojevich caught on tape in a 4-letter word-filled rant.
I've got this thing, and it's golden. And I'm just not giving it up for nothing.
Well, that has been one surefire way to get the president's attention. Mention Barack Obama. He is this president's kryptonite. And this is interesting. Even some of Trump's Fox News allies are not exactly down with commuting Blagojevich's sentence.
That was, at the time, kind of the definition of the swamp.
Yeah, he tried to sell a Senate seat and then got caught. Yeah. I think he probably got his sentence commuted because he was on Celebrity Apprentice.
Blago was one of the worst kind of swamp rats.
Well, speaking of Fox, you heard the president said, I saw his wife on Fox News. Speaking of Fox, probably where the president got the idea about Blagojevich from his wife's appearance there to plead his case. Of course, there's also this.
But Rod, you're fired.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is real. Can you believe? Wow. By the way, was while he was awaiting trial. That was while he was awaiting trial. And then there's the cherry on top of the sundae as far as this president is concerned, tying the Blagojevich case to James Comey.
It was a prosecution by the same people, Comey, Fitzpatrick, the same group.
Couple things here, okay? First, James Comey was Deputy Attorney General early in the Blagojevich corruption investigation, but not when he was arrested or tried. And the former U.S. attorney who prosecuted him, a friend of Comey's, is Patrick Fitzgerald, not Fitzpatrick. But there's more. The president also pardoning the former New York City Police Commissioner Bernie Kerik, who served 3 years in federal prison for charges including tax fraud and lying to officials, and who, not at all coincidentally, was commissioner under then-Mayor Rudy Giuliani. The former mayor praising the pardon for his friend, and in case anyone was unclear on all this, tweeting he himself recommended the pardon. And then there is junk bond king Michael Milken, who served 22 months of his 10-year sentence for violating securities laws. A source telling CNN that pardon is all about the Benjamins. That source saying, quote, Michael Milken is a billionaire with a lot of rich friends. Jared and the campaign will be knocking on all their doors in the coming months. Does anybody else think that sounds like, well, this Latin phrase again that we heard so much about? Oh, right. The quid pro quo. So much for this president trying to claim that he is a corruption fighter. So much for trying to claim everything he did in Ukraine was about fighting corruption. He is pardoning infamous people with name value and with money, a lot of them. People he's heard about from friends or from Fox News. He's pardoned a lot of them. And the fact is, he can. He can use his power to pardon any way that he wants to. And there are times when commuting someone's sentence is the right thing to do. There should be a place for mercy, of course. But you've got to wonder, why these pardons and why now? Well, it's probably no coincidence that he is still angry that Comey and Andrew McCabe aren't being prosecuted. He's still obsessed with the Mueller investigation, even though he got off scot-free.
You had the impeachment hoax, you had the Mueller hoax, you had the Russia nonsense, all scams.
Russia. And he thinks he should be able to do exactly what he wants.
I'm actually, I guess, the chief law enforcement officer of the country.
The president thinks he is the chief law enforcement officer in the country, which he is not. That is not true. That would be the Attorney General. Remember him? Bill Barr, who, according to a source, has considered resigning. A senior Republican congressional official telling CNN that Trump's comments are not what you call out of character. Quote, none of this is surprising. It sure isn't. Not for a president who says this.
I am the chosen one.
Not for a president who says this.
I alone can fix it.
I alone decide who gets punished and who doesn't. My friends don't. People who could be useful don't. My perceived political enemies do. That's what this is all about. And this is just amazing. The President of the United States says the only way he has a voice is through social media.
Social media for me has been very important because it gives me a voice. Because I don't get that voice in the press, in the media, I don't get that voice. So I'm allowed to have a voice.
He thinks he's not allowed to have a voice. Donald Trump has been all over all kinds of media ever since, as he loves to remind us, he came down the Trump Tower escalator on the day he entered the race. He has absolutely no trouble getting his message out. So in the wake of today's pardons, you've got to wonder what is to come. You've got to wonder whether he is saying the quiet part out loud again. And if you wonder if he's not through yet, remember that he's also saying this today.
Do you think Roger Stone deserves any prison time?
You're going to see what happens. Let's see what happens.
See what happens. So our breaking news tonight. Bill Barr, the Attorney General, telling people he's considered resigning over the president's interference with the DOJ, especially his tweets. But would he really do it? Would he? That's next.
Hello. I saw you move in and I wanted to welcome you to the neighbourhood with some homemade biscuits.
Oh, that's so nice.
And a little tip, Geico could help you save on homeowners insurance.
Oh.
Cookies? Biscuits.
So, was that great or what? Who can't wait for, you know, Thursdays with Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren? I'm probably not gonna probably seen it, but are you? Because I could really use the subscribers and the viewers. No offense. So just give me, I'll let you get a minute. I'll give you a minute to tell me what you think. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you'll see it Thursday or not. Well, so far we only got one. I hope Warren tears up Biden. And we got another saying, I think the GOP is a dying party. Thank you, Chris Skunzler. Maybe the Democrats are a dying party, and so is the Republican, but I think they should be replaced by a People's Party. What do you think? What do you mean, what the hell am I watching? I'm closing the video! Lenny. You burned a brain. Thank you. You burned. Okay. All right, I'm gonna close this live stream. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Leave a comment down below. And if you can't help my channel reach 1,000 subscribers, we're just getting closer and closer to that. Closer and closer to that with each, you know. Thanks. And no, the GOP is not. Maybe the GOP is dominating the Senate right now, but not the House. And hopefully, after the 2020 election, the Democrats will be in both the presidency, the House, and Congress. Actually, let me rephrase that. The the right people. Those that are, whether they're a Democrat or Republican. Anyway. Anyway, until next time. It's Jeff Bartle. This is Jeff. Oh yeah, tomorrow's a debate. I think yes, debate tomorrow. So I'll have a live stream for that. Tomorrow. So until then, this is Jeff Bartle saying to y'all, see you tomorrow.